Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some unhinged confession threads where I read some confessions from Reddit and some confessions from you guys, viewers of the Snook channel. And it is a wild and, like the title says, unhinged mix, so you'll want to make sure to stick around. And I appreciate you stopping by, it means the world. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel's goal is 1 million subscribers before the end of the year, so please subscribe. And if you'd like to have your confession in a future confession threads video, please send to the email on screen now. Thank you. And all right, this video will be long enough already, so sit back, relax, and grab a drink and grab a snack. And without further ado, let's get into some unhinged confession threads. I pimped out high school girls for 2 years. One of them was my sister. Ask me anything. Of all the bad things I did back in my drug using, partying days, this has to be the worst. When I was in my early 20s, I dated a high school freshman, and whether it was just because of my influence or whether there were other factors in play, I'll never know. But she was a really screwed up girl. I didn't care. Back then, all I cared about was booger sugar, pills, partying, and effing. Mary was into all of that, but there was a problem. We didn't have much money. She was just a kid, and I barely made $250 a week at my shitty landscaping job. One day, I had her with me while picking up some pills, and the dealer, stoned as fuck, told me he'd give us 2 extra pills if she slept with him. It took some convincing, but Mary eventually agreed, and that was the first time I pimped a girl out. She wasn't the only one or the one I most regret. Like I said, Mary was a screwed up girl before I met her. I'm not saying I didn't make things worse for her, but I'm positive what ended up happening to her wasn't entirely my fault. The ones I regret most aren't even the friends she helped me recruit from her school after Mary became a proper escort. Most of them were also sort of crazy already, or else Mary wouldn't have been able to convince them to work for me. The one I regret most is my sister. She was 15 the first time she asked me for drugs. Just weed, which I had plenty of, but I convinced her it cost 10 times what it did. Keep in mind, I was on something practically all the time at this point, and had grown used to seeing young women as a means to make cash. I was absolutely without remorse or guilt, so she paid with saved up allowance money, something like $100 for 2 joints. Eventually, I brought her to her first rave and even paid for everything, including the pills. While she was rolling hard, I told a friend of mine to massage her, and when she began to complain that he was touching her too much, I told her to stop being a baby and just enjoy it. I watched my sister lose her virginity that night to a guy I barely remember anymore. He paid me $100 later for that. It wasn't long before she became my constant companion at parties, raves, and even clubs. Our parents were trying to control her by grounding her, but I convinced her to sneak out all the time. She and my 2 main girls, including Mary, would go out and get high, and then I'd hook them up with someone. I would take the majority of the money, and they never complained because they were scared of me for a couple of reasons. They were scared I might hurt them because, yes, I barely remember doing so, but while booger sugared out, I was known for getting violent. They were also scared whenever I threatened to leave them or cut them off. They saw me do that to a few of their friends, and they didn't want that to happen. This went on for 2 years. It ended after my sister was arrested for possession and solicitation. I'd had the bright idea that my girls should be getting their own Johns, so I started bringing them to clubs where I knew the bouncers and send them in to find customers for their services. It worked well for a few short weeks until my sister got caught up in a police raid. They arrested dozens of people that night, my sister included, but she was by far the youngest. After that, only Mary remained of my girls. The rest were scared now, and my sister was in a drug treatment center. I tried getting some of them back, even some of the ones I'd gotten rid of before, but I was circling the drain and they seemed to know it. Suddenly, I wasn't the cool older guy, I was the loser druggy guy. What finally got me to change was the day I brought Mary over to one of my dealer's friend's place. This friend was supposedly really into young redheads and would pay $300 for some fun with her. My dealer vouched for him, but I brought Mary there myself anyway because I wanted the money. I was back to being broke and I needed cash desperately, so I brought her to this sketchy neighborhood and walked her to the door. Funny thing is, Crazy Mary was for once nervous and suggested we forget about this dude. I insisted though, and by now she always listened to me. When we entered the room, I knew something was off. There were 3 guys there and they had flashlights. They said something about the power being off, and I stupidly believed them enough to let them lead me into the main room. Mary was freaking out by this point, probably because she realized what I hadn't. This house wasn't theirs. Hell, it was an abandoned house. No furniture, total mess, all fucked up. Before all that registered to me, I was attacked. They beat the shit out of me. I barely remember any of it. I do remember being strapped into a gurney and hearing a paramedic say that my lung was punctured. Turns out he was wrong, but I was in enough pain to believe it. I spent the next few days in the hospital being treated for a variety of things, including a concussion that required them drilling a hole in my skull, broken ribs, a broken hand that never healed correctly, and of course, H withdrawal. When the police spoke with me, I refused to answer any questions until they asked me if I knew that my friend Mary had been assaulted as well. I remember feeling, and I still feel, the shame of realizing I had never even considered what happened to her. Turns out she had been violently R-worded while I was unconscious. They beat the hell out of her too. I think that's the first time I honestly felt guilt about what I've been doing for nearly 2 years. Not even my sister getting arrested had been enough to make me realize what an asshole I was, but being shown the pictures of Mary's face, all swollen and bruised, made me cry like a girl. I told the police everything about my dealer friend and how he'd set up a date with Mary that night, but nothing ever came of it. The dealer kept his mouth shut, and even though they raided his home, they only found a little pot. No money, guns, or drugs. He got a slap on the wrist. Yeah, I cleaned up after that. I've been drug-free for 5 years now. But Mary, last I heard, is still a heavy user. My sister got clean and is now in college, but she's had a string of abusive boyfriends, and I know that's probably my fault. I was her big brother, and I taught her that men only want her for intimacy, and she's had a hard time unlearning that lesson. The other girls I barely even remember, and am too much of a coward to try and track down. And even though it was a Ask Me Anything, the OP didn't really answer a lot of questions, and the questions he did answer have since been deleted. I mean, this was posted 13 years ago, so a lot of the accounts that commented have been banned or deleted or whatever. So let's just get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "That is a confession. That is a story. And then someone replies saying, doesn't sound like bullshit to me. I've known plenty of people to live this kind of life, and I've been pretty close to those situations myself. Not tricking for drugs and money, but around while it was happening. The people who are calling it fake have obviously never been in these situations, being heavily addicted to drugs, hanging out with dealers who sling mass amounts of drugs, or knowing girls who were so desperate for a fix that having intimacy with someone for drugs/money wasn't even a question. Believe it or not, this stuff doesn't only happen in the movies. Someone else says, that's a effed up story. I'm glad you got a wake-up call and also decided to unburden yourself. Damn. Have you ever apologized to your sister or Mary about what you did to them? I feel like that would bring a lot of healing too. Peace. And the OP replies saying, yes, I apologized to my sister once, but only because she apologized to me first. We don't discuss that time in our lives anymore. As for Mary, no. I only saw her once after being in the hospital, and that was when she came to me asking for a hookup. I told her I was clean now, and she should be too, and she agreed, but while I stayed clean, she hasn't. Someone else says, track them down. Do something. And the OP replies saying, call it a cop-out, but I honestly don't know where to begin finding them. I don't even remember their full names. Mary might know, but last I heard, she had moved away, and the person who told me that said she was still really fucked up. And then an OP asks, what made you decide to do and ask me anything? And the OP replies saying, I just have a hard time sleeping, even with medication. I get these awful nightmares that wake me up in the middle of the night, and I feel like total shit. I feel like a fake when I go to my meetings. I try my best to get over my past, but I can't stop thinking about it. My sponsor suggested that I be more open about everything I did back when I was using, so I decided to try and ask me anything to see if it would help. And then someone replies saying, you will never get over your past because you are a truly rotten person. That doesn't change. Your only positive contribution to the world will be when you leave it. I knew my brother was going to commit S-word, and I didn't try to stop him. Hi Snook, I've been watching your videos for years now, as I deliver packages for FedEx and I love your content. So much so that I have almost no more of them to listen to. So thank you for being a big part of my life. I hope this can make it into a video, as I feel it may have some value to others who may relate. All names have been changed for privacy. Please keep me anonymous. Now on to my confession. In order to truly paint the picture for this confession, I need to give some backstory context. Rewind the year to early 2012. I, age 11 at this time, was living with my mom and her douchebag husband in a small town in Utah. I never clicked with that guy, and he threatened harm to me plenty, and at one point actually did. Anyway, I had a falling out with my mother, and one early, rainy morning, after a big fight, she ordered me into her van, didn't let me gather my things, and I was only wearing gym shorts. In the van, she didn't say a word, only drove angrily. She dropped me off at my dad's apartment and sped away. I knocked on his door, and he and his wife, we will call Dee Dee, accepted me with open arms. The next couple of months is where I get acquainted with Dee Dee's family, her parents and her children. Her two sons lived with us, 16 male Ryan and 12-year-old male Brian. My stepbrothers over the next 2 years became what I saw as brothers. The events over these 2 years can be made into stories themselves, but that's not the topic today. Now let's go forward a year, into early 2013. I am now 12 years of age. Me and Ryan are best bros. He was the older brother I never had. He was funny, made tons of jokes, always made people laugh. He was charming and had the looks. Tall, dark, and handsome, as some would say. He had it all. I looked up to him, but I believe it was August of that year, Ryan got into a terrible car accident, going 70 miles an hour, no seatbelt, and crashed into a ditch, hitting something. I don't know what exactly, but he ended up flying through his window shield and into the ditch. Oncoming traffic found him and called the police. He had a massive open gash in his head and was unconscious. I still remember the call my dad and Dee Dee got. It was traumatic for us all. At the hospital, Ryan ended up needing brain surgery. After a couple of weeks, he made a full recovery and was discharged. The weeks following, I noticed Ryan wasn't the same. He had new interests and didn't make as many jokes. He was suddenly into Mexican music and the language. He lost friends and had an obsession with this one girl at his school. One day, while in my room, he came in with an extension cord and told me something along the lines of, "I swear to God, I'm going to kill this lady," referring to Dee Dee. "I'm going to strangle her with this cord," and all the while had a smile on his face. I found the statement shocking, but at the same time, I also thought he was making a dark joke. He was a jokester after all. Another time, close to Halloween, he bought a mask and would spend a lot of time customizing it. One time, I went to the shed where he would work on his mask, which was black and marked with scratches and expressionless. I told him how cool his mask was looking. He said thanks and proceeded to say, "If you hear on the news about a shooting and the person wore this mask, you know it was me. Remember that." Again, shocking, but I thought he was making a dark joke. Now, almost a decade later, I realized these statements were most likely cries for help. I just wish I could see that when I was so young. Now, another year later, early 2014, I was 13 years of age. I noticed Ryan was a lot more isolated. He hardly talked to people and always seemed angry. I never knew why, but he had temper issues. My dad and Dee Dee's shared birthday was coming up, and Ryan had plans to surprise them with a gift. He told me it was going to be amazing, and they were going to love it, but in the meantime, we was going to write in his journal about his ongoings. A week goes by, and it is now my dad and his wife Dee Dee's shared birthday. Ryan is sitting at the dinner table, writing in his journal. I ask him what he is doing. He replies, shockingly, "It's my S-word note." At my immature age of 13 and lack of experience with this type of stuff, I said, "Haha, no it isn't." Ryan looked up at me, expressionless, like his mask, and simply said, "Yes, it is." Now, to preface this, at my young age of 13, I have never had to deal with death, especially anyone so close to me. I didn't know the seriousness. I didn't know how to handle this. I've never needed to. I didn't believe him. My heart hurts with what I'm about to type out. I told him, if he was going to do it, he should spend the rest of his credit card and buy me things. I know. How disgusting. I obliged. For the rest of the day, my biological brother and Ryan hung out. We walked the town as he told me his plans to commit S-word. Looking back, I knew I believed him by that point, but I didn't want to. I wanted to believe he was just making another dark joke, and we would all laugh about it later. We walked and walked, talked and talked. Then we made it to Walmart, where he proceeded to buy me and my brother things with the rest of his money. At this point, I needed to talk to him. It had gotten too real. We sat outside Walmart and chatted. I told him he shouldn't do it. He couldn't do it. We love him, and so many others do. But he would go on to tell me nothing would change his mind. Nobody was going to stop him. Then he made a statement that still chills me to this day. He said, You realize, if I don't do this, I'm going to kill everyone, right? I'm going to kill everyone and go to prison. To which I replied, even me? And chillingly, he simply replied, yes. Then he said, so I need to do this. I don't think you want me to end your life or your dad's. So if you try to tell anyone or call the police, I will kill you all and commit S-word later. Following this was silence. I didn't know what to say. I was terrified. I didn't want him to follow through, and I didn't want him to kill us all. We finished the walk and ended up at his grandparents' house. This is where he dropped off the Walmart supplies and his S-word note. He told them not to open any of it until 9 p.m. It was a surprise. For whatever reason, they agreed. His grandparents took me and my biological brother back home, where just before leaving, Ryan looked at me with a smile and said, bye, bro. I'll see you tomorrow. This statement leaves a deep sadness in me to this day. I stay silent. Now at my dad's and Dee Dee's apartment, an hour goes by. Just me and my dad, alone, as Dee Dee was at a meeting. We were playing video games and eating dinner. Then my dad gets a call. I knew what that call was. I look over to my dad. He is stunned. He puts a hand to his mouth and begins to silently cry. I've only ever seen my dad cry like that twice in my life. This was serious. He hangs up the phone, looks at me and says, Ryan fucking committed S-word. He fucking committed S-word. I began to cry. We cried and hugged on my dad's birthday. The note, which was titled The Comedian, was opened too late by his grandparents, and it revealed everything. His plans to commit a shooting, the reasons he came to this decision, so many reasons. We found out a big reason was his father was also committed S-word while he was a young boy, and his family would SA him. The birthday surprise he had for my dad and Dee Dee, it was terrifying. He was going to kill them both. Then me, my brother, and his brother. But he didn't. I guess I can thank him for that. But in the end, I still feel guilty. I wish I knew more. I wish I was more mature. I wish I pulled him out of that. All the red flags, all the warning signs, I was too young and stupid. My brother committed S-word, and I didn't stop him. To this day, over a decade later, I am now 25 years old. I have lived longer than he did. I have a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful children. I have everything he never got to have. I will forever feel guilt, sadness. Such a great guy. Such a terrible ending. If this gets in a video, I want everyone to know. Whether you are a young, ignorant kid like I was, or an older person, please, please do everything you can to save someone. See the warning signs. Take their words seriously. Pull them out of that place and save a loved one. Or end up like me. Thank you, Snook, for reading, and I hope this can be of some value to someone. There is a lot to learn from my mistakes. My sister is mentally ill, and I wish she would just die already. Hi, Snook. This might be a long one, so sorry in advance. I have a few major things in my life I could talk about, but this is probably one of the most entertaining, I guess. I recently stumbled across your YouTube channel and got hooked, so I thought maybe I could share something and get it off my chest. Obviously, I'd like this to stay anonymous, and do with it what you will. My sister is bipolar and schizophrenic. She is mentally very unwell and keeps having children. I currently have 5 nieces and 1 nephew from 3 different fathers. One of them is a stoner who sells drugs. One is in jail for murder. He also threatened my mom and said he would throw acid on her face. And another is an alcoholic who has 3 or more R-word allegations against him. As you can guess, none of them are present in the children's lives. The worst part is that my mom has custody of most of the kids, and many of them have difficulties. One has ADHD and autism, one has an 18-month developmental delay, and another also has autism. For some context, I live with my Spanish dad in Spain. My mom is English and stayed in England. I left because I was sick of everything and had a terrible childhood. So I moved in with my dad. My sister is older than me and has a different dad, and that's where a lot of her issues come from. Her father was Middle Eastern. I can't remember exactly where from. He forced my mom to convert to his religion and basically treated her like a slave. When my sister was a child, she was repeatedly abused and R-worded by her dad and her uncles. A few years later, my mom had me with my dad in Spain, and I had a relatively normal childhood until I was about 5 or 6. When my parents split up, I'm surprised I remember so much from that time because I was so young, but I remember getting along well with my sister back then. When my parents separated, I moved to England with my mom and my sister. I don't think my sister even remembered what had happened to her until later on. In England, she got mixed up with the wrong crowd, started smoking weed, taking drugs, and getting into trouble. From that point on, I felt like she wasn't the same person anymore. She completely changed. When everything seemed to be going well, at least from the perspective of a 6 or 7-year-old, everything suddenly turned. I left England and moved back to Spain when I was 13. Over the years, my sister was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and she has had 3 psychotic episodes. From what I understand, each one can cause serious damage and reduce cognitive function. She goes on and off her medication. When she's on it, she's like a piece of furniture, glued to her phone and completely disconnected from the kids and everyone else. When she's off it, she becomes unstable again and ends up getting pregnant. It's honestly insane. She's driving my mom to the brink, and most of the family wants nothing to do with her anymore. I feel powerless because I'm in Spain and can't really do anything to help. Sometimes I just wish she would drop dead so everyone could finally live their lives in peace. I especially feel bad for the kids, because they must be traumatized by all of her episodes. I know it's not really her fault. She had a horrible childhood that left her deeply traumatized and mentally scarred for life, but at the same time, I also had a terrible childhood because of everything that happened around her, and I don't go around causing that kind of trouble. I know she probably isn't capable of thinking the way most people do, but it's still incredibly frustrating because all she seems to do is cause pain for everyone around her. Recently, during her last pregnancy, doctors said that both she and the baby almost didn't make it. They warned that if she got pregnant again, either she or the child might die. And the only thought that crossed my mind was, well, in a couple of months, I might have to catch a flight for my sister's funeral. Am I wrong for thinking like that? She isn't the sister I used to know. It feels like the sister I had died years before I moved to Spain. Even while typing this out, I feel nothing for her. Honestly, I believe my family back there would probably be better off without her. I don't want to ramble too long and drag it out, so any questions, feel free to ask. Let me know if you use this, and thanks for your videos. It makes me feel like I'm not the only one in the world with a twisted mind. Lots of love, bro. I killed my own mother. My mother was an evil person, long ago corrupted by some form of mental illness. Beyond the typical annoying mom stuff, she had a cruel streak that is extremely hard to explain. On more than one occasion, I saw her physically attack children, animals, and even her own elderly parents while they were still alive. I moved away from my mother at the age of 10. And for the decade that followed, I tried to be a good son. I would visit a few times each year and call at least once a week. During this time, she degenerated from an alcoholic to a hard drug user, eventually finding religion and becoming born again. But despite her newfound faith, she remained just as cruel as ever. For her, God was a vengeful being, bent on revenge and punishment. In her twisted worldview, Jesus had no problem with cruelty, so long as we were faithful. Faithful to what exactly? I don't know. When I was in my early 20s, I went to visit my mother, and we ended up going for a long drive together. We hadn't planned anything, but we ended up in the mountains about an hour west of town, and decided to go for a hike like we used to. She was actually in a rather pleasant mood that day, and I had some important news to share. I was about to become a father myself. After an hour or so of hiking and talking about this news, we stopped at a little plateau to admire the view. The ledge was next to a steep drop-off, offering an incredible view of the Rockies behind us. It was like something out of a National Geographic special. I suggested we take a photo of ourselves, and she agreed. I set up my camera hanging from a dead tree and aimed it using the strap so that the view would be behind us. I set the timer for 60 seconds and walked back towards the edge of the cliff. I smiled for the camera and gestured for my mother to join me. She did. A moment later, a green light blinked at us, and something inside me activated. Something that had been there all along. Something that is still deep inside me now. Without hesitation, I turned and shoved her off the edge of the plateau as hard as I could. I watched her eyes glow with fierce rage as her neck snapped forward. She stumbled for a step or two and then toppled over the edge. It was so surreal. She looked like Wile E. Coyote. I laughed. Not at her pain, just the absurdity of the situation. And just like the Wile E. Coyote from the cartoons, she was silent. The only sound was the snapping of pine branches and the chirps of frightened birds. I calmly hiked down and around, towards where the body was. As I approached, I could hear a soft gurgling, and I was amazed to find her still alive, partially impaled on a stump. I'm no doctor, but there was a lot of blood. My guess is that she punctured a lung because she couldn't talk. She could only drool blood and gurgle at me. I pulled out my cell phone. No bars. I wanted to stay and watch her die. But I knew the time had come to act rationally again. I hiked towards the car at a double pace and called 911 as soon as I found some reception again. The operator had a sweet southern drawl and asked me if I knew where I was. Of course I did. I had hiked these mountains 1,000 times. She said authorities were on their way, and I knew I had an hour at least. I rushed back to the body, but it was too late. She had already died. I didn't touch the body. I didn't move her. I wanted to make sure I had a few questions to answer as possible. To cut to the quick, the death was ruled an accident, and I was never charged with anything. My mother was a piece of shit. So no one else really cared that she died, and no one had reason to suspect me. The sorrowful, grieving son who had come to visit his mother like a good little boy of anything. I never even took a polygraph. No one asked me to. So why am I telling this to you? R/confession? I'll tell you why. Just a few minutes ago, my son, who is now in the 4th grade, was sent home from school early for brawling, and he came home to find me here in my home office, working, as I usually do. Eager to change the subject, he grabbed a photo that I leave on my desk and asked me about it. I grabbed it back away from him and sent him off to his room. But after sitting here and just staring into this photo for a while, I felt the need to share. After all, it is one of my favorite photos. I look so happy. Hell, even Mom looks happy. My wife is dead. The best Christmas present I could have gotten. At the beginning of 2022, I caught my wife having an affair with one of her exes. Our marriage wasn't perfect. I was not the perfect husband, I will admit. But I did my best. I put effort into the entire 5 years we were together. I put my all into the relationship. Her, I could not say the same. I was forced to confront the reality of who she truly was shortly after I caught her. She illegally evicted me from our shared home, lied to the police to try and get me arrested, tried to get me fired from my job, and tried to turn all of my friends against me. Some of these succeeded, while others did not. She has made my life a living hell since the day I asked her for the divorce, and has planted her heels into the ground over our separation to try and drain all my finances and emotional strength from me. The only upside is we had no kids for her to use as weapons. But I soon found out that her policy of strict birth control with me did not extend to her suitor, as he got her pregnant 5 months ago. I thought maybe this would help speed along the divorce, but it only rallied her in her efforts to destroy me. On Christmas Eve, my wife and her suitor went to a party where both of them got drunk. I find this fact terrible, as all her friends knew she was pregnant as well. Her suitor drove them home, a mistake that would cost them both their lives. In the state I live in, our divorce is now considered to never have even started. I will be able to claim her life insurance policy for myself and move back into my home. Her parents called me up distraught yesterday, acting as if the last year had never happened, and offered their full support to my funeral preparations for her. My confusion here was beyond belief, but the apple does not fall far from the tree when it comes to my wife. I told them if they want a funeral, it was coming out of their pockets. I will pay for her to be cremated and deliver her ashes to them in the cheapest urn offered if they desire. They called me horrible and tried to guilt me about her life insurance. But after only 4 minutes on the phone with them, I hung up and blocked every one of her family's numbers. I'm going to be taking a few extra days off work to move back into my house over the next week. I've already made arrangements to have her stuff hauled off, so my home will be an empty canvas to start my life anew. I don't know if there is a God or if this was just karma, but I truly believe now that I've come out on the other side of the storm. And then the OP provides an update saying, I have decided to elaborate on a few common threads I see in this post here, as responding to all the comments would be too much. Firstly, some are judging me for the way I'm reacting to the death of 3 people. You're right. It is not normal, nor is it healthy. I feel no emotions toward my ex at this moment. All my hatred, resentment, and regret evaporated when I learned of her death. I feel nothing but relief right now. This void has slowly consumed me over the past few days. I feel numb, like I'm dreaming, like what happened is not real. This woman made my life a living hell for over a year. She set out to destroy me and would not stop until she did. I do not like the fact that I feel this way over the death of 3 people, but that is not a box I feel ready to unpack at this moment. Secondly, I've reached out to my ex's mom today, and things are much more civil as of now. I'll pay the hauling company to move her stuff into one of their storage units, and then can figure out the rest. Her mother revealed to me that they cannot afford to host a funeral for my ex. I am 100% the legal beneficiary of her life insurance. Despite my past hatred for her family, I told her mother I will give them a small amount from her life insurance so they can have a service and arrange burial logistics for her. This is contingent on us cutting ties after, and I will not be involved any further in her funeral. I will still be talking to a lawyer. Lastly, I am not going to elaborate any further, except the only lives lost was hers, her suitor, and their unborn child. Some are saying I should sell the house. Right now, I only want to return to my home. The details of where I end up, either there or somewhere over the rainbow, are yet to be determined. I do not know what life holds for me, or any of us. This event happened. Maybe for a reason, or maybe the universe has no logic at all. This gift put an end to a period of my life that sent me to the brink of destruction. It's morbid to think that the death of 3 people was what pulled me to the other side alive. It's interesting how quick it can all change or end. I put peanut butter in my friend's drink thinking she was lying about her allergy. I was young, only in the 2nd grade, and had recently been taught about lying. After our lessons on sinning and doing bad stuff, I developed the idea that my friend, let's call her Lily, was lying about her peanut allergy and just didn't like peanut butter, but was too ashamed to tell me because they were my favorite snack at the time. Not to mention the times when someone would bring in a snack for the class, and we'd always have to check if they had peanuts in them. If they did, the whole class couldn't eat them so that she wouldn't feel left out. I was tired of what I thought was a dumb, made-up lie, and decided to take matters into my own hands by bringing a big jar of peanut butter and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Once it's snack break, I waited until Lily went to the bathroom to take out my peanut butter jar to slip a spoonful into her cup, shaking it good so she wouldn't suspect a thing. Once she came back, she sat down and drank some of the peanut butter infused water. As she did, I watched with wide eyes, making sure to take in every detail. Now convinced that she's been lying the whole time, suddenly, Lily started coughing uncontrollably, choking and thrashing herself all over the floor. It also didn't help that she forgot her EpiPen at home that day, causing her to convulse and forcing my teacher to call an ambulance. It turned out she was severely allergic to peanut butter, and I never had the gall to tell her what I'd done that day. We are still friends today, and she strongly believes that her father was trying to kill her that day since she got in a fight with him the day before regarding her dead mother. I lied and took a company asset home. I got caught, fired, and 4 years later, I still regret it. This happened 4 years ago, and I still think about it almost every day. I worked in an IT department for 8 years, and part of my job was managing company assets. There was a TV in storage that hadn't been used for years. Nobody ever mentioned it. Nobody cared about it. At least, that's what I told myself. So I decided to take it home. But I didn't just take it quietly. I made up a story and filled out a request form saying I was moving the TV to a supplier's location. A complete lie. The truth is, I was taking it home for myself. I created that fake excuse to make it seem legitimate, and I handed the form in like everything was fine. The guard saw me taking the TV, took a picture, and reported it. That's how I got exposed. Everything escalated fast. It became a big issue in the company. I returned the TV within a few days, but the damage was already done. At the time, I was so defensive. I told myself, it's just a TV. What's the big deal? I felt like people were overreacting and gossiping unnecessarily. But in truth, I had lied, manipulated the system, and broken trust. My boss was disappointed. They didn't say much. They just ended my contract quietly. I didn't get a chance to explain. I lost my job, and even worse, I lost all of my friends there. People cut me off, unfollowed or blocked me on social media. No one reached out. No one asked me what really happened. I became the center of gossip, even among people who had already left the company. I know what I did was wrong. I was manipulative. I was persistent. I thought I could get away with it. And now, years later, it still haunts me. I miss my coworkers. Not even one person in particular. Just the group moments, the laughter, the feeling of belonging. I didn't take the TV because I needed it. I think I just wanted a small win, a sense of control, something that felt like mine in a job where I felt invisible. I regret it deeply, and I don't know if people ever really forgive you for something like this, but I needed to get it off my chest. My wife of 13 years confessed about an affair about 3 months ago. She told me the day after our anniversary that they had intimacy often. I don't know what to do. The title pretty much explains it all. I am a stay-at-home dad of 3, including one with special needs. For the past couple of years, it's been a slog. Therapist after therapist after therapist for my kiddo with cerebral palsy. 2 other kids in school. It's something we discussed many times. She works and is able to provide for us financially, and I would stay home with them. 2 years ago, she joined a gym and began a relationship with John. John and my wife would frequently message on Facebook about random things, but things that my wife tried to hide and delete. She has lied about speaking to him, what they've spoken about, amongst other things. We are done having kids, so she used this time to get a breast augmentation and tummy tuck-like procedure. It felt like she was literally going to cheat on me, but she assured me that this was just her way of getting out of her motherhood body. She spends an unworldly amount of time at the gym, before work, off days, literally doesn't stop. She can easily spend 3 to 4 hours at the gym. Meanwhile, I am at home with the kids, preparing lunch, breakfast, getting them to school, taking my child with cerebral palsy to his therapy appointments. Things start to get worse. I find that I'm getting more frustrated with feeling like a single parent, while she is just living her dream life at the gym and building a career. She feels like I'm treating her unfairly and takes her rings off last summer. She didn't tell me about it, but she is stating that we are separated, but no ground rules are laid out. She continues to live her life with her rings off without any sort of discussion. We were definitely in a slump. My skepticism of her and John's relationship continues, but we hit hills and valleys in our relationship. It feels that sometimes it improves, and some days it feels like it wasn't going to work. We had laid out some rules about this guy, and I asked her to delete him from her phone and block him. They can communicate at the gym since she's there so much, but nowhere else. Flash forward to June. I found a text message thread while I tried fixing her phone with a random number. It was messages upon messages of hers and John's relationship. Mind you, this guy is married as well. My suspicions for over 2 years was true. I knew she was cheating on me. I flipped out. I was so upset. She said they didn't have any physical contact except for holding hands and hugging. She was extremely adamant that that was it. Things didn't feel like they would get better, but eventually they kind of did over a couple of months. That, or maybe I was missing who my wife was. I don't know, but it felt that an emotional affair was easier to forgive. I told her I forgave her and that we recommitted of making this work. It felt like we were more normal than ever, and she was being open and honest about my questions that I had. The day after our anniversary, she drops a bombshell. She actually was physical in her affair. They had intimacy an unknown amount of times in his car while she was at work. She says they wore protection. I am so mortified. I already grieved for her once, but now I put through another round of mental torment and physical PTSD. She lied again. She said she didn't have intimacy with him initially, but now she wanted to lay it out. She says the last time they had intimacy was in April. I don't know what to believe. She says she felt insanely lonely. I asked her why not just get a divorce, and she said that she never had that intention and that she, quote, cares so deeply for our family and kids. It feels so contradictory. She had intimacy with this guy while also having intimacy with me occasionally, and she didn't feel the need to tell me that I'm literally banging her after this guy was. Jesus Christ. Typing this out makes me want to die. I am using an alt account, but I have details that would make this story more clearer, but I do not want to tie it in to some personal information, as I think I would be pretty easily identified by my profession and personal posts. She states she is utterly remorseful and wants to work things out. I literally just got myself tested for STDs today. I would have never thought I would have to do this, but here I am. I am at a loss, guys. I'm a mid-30s dad of 3, and it feels like my life is fucking over. My kids keep me grounded. And now let's get into some of the top comments. One user quotes, cared so deeply for our family and kids. And then the commenter replies to that saying, 3 to 4 hours at the gym every day. When is she even home to care so deeply about the kids? And the OP replies saying, this is exactly my point. She literally goes to the gym in the early morning, but sometimes doesn't get home until kids are on the bus. I would hate to miss waving them off. I wave them off every morning. One user comments, first things first, you should make an appointment with a lawyer and a marriage counselor if you so choose. Have them both spell out your options as well as what custody looks like. That's where you can work from as your base. Everything has failed and we're getting divorced spot. Next step is to figure out, do you actually want to reconcile? Has your wife actually shown you any form of forgiveness? Does her affair partner's wife know? I would personally make that a condition that the wife has to know before anything else happens. If your wife tries to defend him, tell her in no uncertain terms that you guys are over if she tries to defend him whatsoever. She has to choose you versus him and has to actually do the work. She has basically she gets to do whatever she wants while you maintain the house lifestyle, and that needs to change. You need a social life, and the whole reason she had enough time to go cheat was that you were maintaining everything at home while she could get off scot-free and do whatever the hell she wanted. The fact is that she chose him over you multiple times, and you have to tell her that is what she did. Does she recognize the enormity of what she did by choosing to step out of your marriage multiple times, including around your anniversary? Does she realize that she was giving you sloppy seconds, whether or not she was actually doing that? That is the actual effect of what she did. She has to realize that she did not choose you and chose herself. Honestly, I would also have a big problem with forgiveness, because how many times did she turn you down for emotional and physical intimacy while providing it to someone else outside of the marriage? How much time did she spend outside of your marriage with somebody else due to the direct efforts that you have put in to keep your family going? Did she not realize that the only reason she had time to do anything was your sacrifice? I would say this for any gender, but this is selfish. I just want to let you know your pain is justified, and frankly, I don't know if she wants to rug sweep and move on, but I don't know exactly how she's shown remorse and what effort she's actually putting in order to move your relationship back to a trusting one. Any thoughts? And then the OP replies saying, I'm reading through this. I will add, when I found said text messages, the first thing she said was, quote, she cares about him, which really pissed me off. She should care about me as her husband. She finally has told him no more contact, and she blocked him on every platform and said that she is willing to have an open device policy. I do think this is extremely remorseful, at least right now. He has made some suggestive comments as a way to make her feel bad. She did put her rings back on, and the guy wants to reconcile to me as well. AKA, he reached out to me on Instagram, and I immediately blocked his dumbass. Another user says, I've said this before on this sub that if my spouse was the one to come clean about an affair, I'd be likely to try to work it out, but this is just a disaster. If you decide to stay, and that's a big if, number one, couples counseling. Number two, quitting the gym. Number three, spending time with her newly available free time with the kids she allegedly cares deeply for. But this all hinges on one question. Do you even want to work things out? Seriously, ignore everything I just suggested. Ignore any stay, leave, crucify her in the divorce, or other comments. Take some time and really ask yourself, do you want to try to work this out? And then a commenter replies to that saying, thank you for putting this question into words that I've been trying to do myself in another thread. The real question is, what is she doing to want to make him stay? And the OP replies saying, that's what I'm thinking. From the beginning, I'm convinced she had a plan or deep intention, but she says things just kind of fell that way. Yeah, right. She says they were just friends first, but if that's the case, why did she delete all of her messages from him when I first saw them? That first happened like 1.5 years ago. This has been shitty since the start. Another user comments, your mistake was thinking any sort of affair would be less harmfully. An affair is an affair, regardless getting physical or not. Have you wondered why did she have this surge of honesty so suddenly? I imagine her affair has gone sour. She's afraid being dumped by you and is trying to keep you around. I won't be the one to tell you how you should take on your life, OP. You are the only one who knows how hard this hurts you and how bad you are right now. However, I'd recommend you to take your feelings in consideration this time. May you find the inner strength to take the best decision for your happiness and for your emotional health. And the OP replies saying, you're not wrong. Things did get sour after I found these texts. She immediately ceased that relationship and blocked him. I think that's why she wants to start fresh and continue our relationship. She's given me contradictory information that it only happened because she was separated and she was extremely lonely. But then she said she doesn't want to leave her family and that we mean so much to her. I asked her plainly, did you think about us when you were banging in his car? And then we don't hear an update for a long time, about 3 months, but then 3 months later, the OP comes back and gives us an update. Let's get into it. Mild update. My wife of 13 years confessed about an affair about 3 months ago. She told me the day after our anniversary that they had intimacy often. I debated on whether or not I really wanted to write an update or not. Life has been really a whirlwind of emotion since that point. For all those people who gave me encouragement and advice, I really appreciate you more than you know. We sought counseling pretty much ASAP since all this shook out, which has been a somewhat positive experience, I think, for both of us. Overall, this update is really boring, but maybe I need an outlet right now because I'm feeling it hard today. Generally speaking, things just are right now. Some days feel more hopeful than others, but we are decently committed to making this work out for now, especially given our situation with our kids, specifically our son. Our therapy sessions tend to work on our communication and forward progress. It's hard not to gripe or look for some sort of validation of my frustrations with my wife about how things shook out or what I experienced. Although she's entitled to her feelings about how I approached their relationship in the beginning, which she swears was merely friendly in the beginning. Although the more I think about it, the more it feels like I'm being gaslit by my wife and maybe a little bit by our therapist. I generally do not have a problem with my wife having male friends. And even when we were having a hard time, I felt that I made my boundary extremely clear. Initially, when they were just friends, she would message him like regularly, going into topics that felt boundary crossing. In this, she says they were just friends. But now, I don't think I'm comfortable with her having friends like that again. And I told her that. I am a little upset because reflecting on things now makes me feel like both my wife and our therapist made it seem I'm letting my anxiety get the best of me. We have moved toward an open device policy, really on her end. We have set new boundaries about relationships and maintaining these relationships. Although now that I read and typed this out, I really feel like I'm giving more than what she ever had to, even though she's the one who decided to pursue a runaway relationship with another man. She states she didn't feel safe in our marriage and pursued this relationship. I'm so conflicted on how to feel about everything as I type this. I am learning to rebuild my trust in her. I need to feel safe again. I want to feel like this was her character flaw rather than a reaction to how she felt I treated her. She says that she felt unsafe, frustrated, unloved. I'm not saying those things aren't untrue because she is entitled to her own feelings, but it feels like an excuse. Things were rocky for a while, but she feels that we were not doing well before I had issues with her communication with this guy. That feels incorrect because since that moment, I know I've been short with her, and with good reason. She literally lied about the regular and the amount of communication they had together. It feels like I'm being gaslit because she made it seem like friends have that regular amount of communication. Some days we end in fights, mainly about my tone or my reaction. It feels like a broken record. She constantly criticizes how I communicate with her or our kids. It feels like it never ends, and this is something she continually goes back to as a reason for her abandonment. But some days, it feels like it ends more peacefully and calmly. I guess going back to why I decided to write today was really about feeling worthless. I feel absolutely unfit and unworthy. I let my wife trample on me, and she makes me feel that it really was my fault for her actions. It feels that the therapist also wants me to understand these flaws and how they shape the events that happened. I don't know, but maybe the therapist is right. I am noticeably anxious about anything my wife does. and I feel that it won't change. I will always worry about who she's talking to. She says she's committed to our relationship, but it feels like such a shitty excuse. I told her that's what you said on our wedding day, and look at this fucking mess. I wish my update contained more substance. I wish part of me could say I left her cheating ass, got alimony/child support, got abs, and met someone new. I can't do that right now. I try to stay busy at work and at home. Edit. Just for clarity's sake, my wife did make it abundantly clear that she wants nothing to do with him in more ways than one. He's been finding ways to continue to see her attention. He even wrote an email to her, and she showed me immediately. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "I'm sorry, dude. I guess you decided to stay. I know I wouldn't. It's easier said than done, yes, but she lied, and lied. I'm sure there's more lies in there too." And the OP replies saying, "My decision to stay isn't set in stone. It's built on the idea that we are extremely fragile and she has to put in the work. If not, or if she crosses our transparent boundary, I'm not giving her a third chance." Another commenter says, "I'm curious, have you informed his wife? Has she cut contact with him? Does she still go to the gym? What is she doing to make this work on her end? Please elaborate. I'm genuinely curious. I would like to know how you're going to be able to move forward in this. I'm sorry you are going through this. Update me." And the OP replies saying, "As far as I know, he and his wife are separated and made that an agreement. So to him and his wife, he was within his own rights. That's all hearsay though, and I'd rather not think about it anymore. Does my wife go to the gym? Buddy, let me tell you, she's still addicted to it. Goes every day in the AM since me and our kids are still sleeping. Still works out for 3 to 4 hours at a time usually. Although she is quite social when she goes, which is why it takes her so long. She finds that her identity really relies on her ability to maintain this gym time, I've noticed. I think if you took it away from her, I don't know what she would do." And a user replies to that saying, "Fine, I can understand that gym, but is it the same gym? Like, is this just business as usual? They still attend the gym together? Please, I hope not. You can't be that naive. There has to be some consequences, at least in my experience. If nothing changes, nothing changes. What had she done exactly in this reconciliation to prove to you that you're not her second choice?" And the OP replies and says, "It is not the same gym. Although it's funny when she bitches about not being able to go there, mainly because of her old friend group and proximity to our house. It makes me want to stare at her and laugh as if she didn't cause that entire problem." Another commenter says, "Fire your therapist. Whoever they are, they suck. You need to find one specializing in infidelity who will hold her feet to the fire. Unless your therapist holds the line that no matter what was going on in the marriage, cheating is inexcusable, and that the first priority is to deal with your pain and the nuclear bomb that your wife chose to blow up in the middle of your marriage. They're crap and completely unqualified to do their job. Good luck." And the OP replies saying, "She has tried EMDR therapy for my trauma. I believe they are qualified at least somewhat, but I wish she would be more assertive about protecting me given what transpired. Although, to that effect, I know she needs to remain neutral, so I'm not sure what good therapy looks like." Another commenter says, "Find a new couples therapist because yours sounds very biased. And I really suggest individual therapy because you need a space away from her to work through this." And the OP replies saying, "I agree. I think individual therapy would really help me." Another commenter said, "Never ever be a stay-at-home dad. Women lose all respect for their spouses when they become stay-at-home dads. Get a job pronto. And then the OP responds and says, I've said this ad nauseum. I have a PRN job. My special needs son has a plethora of therapists he sees. He needs some type of stable transportation. And that is the last update we have received from the OP. And to be honest, I'm kind of curious what he ends up doing because they don't seem like they have a stable relationship at all. And most likely he will end up divorcing her. I mean, I would. And I feel like a lot of people in the comments were suggesting that he divorced him because it clearly is not a relationship that has trust in it. I mean, he even said it. He can't trust his wife or who she's talking to, and he's very scared of who she's talking to all the time. That just doesn't seem healthy. It doesn't seem like he'll be able to sustain itself. I really hope the OP gets therapy, and hopefully he'll be able to work out the relationship, whether that is divorce or trying to rebuild the broken relationship they have. And all right, guys, that wraps up some unhinged confession threads. And wow, some of those confessions were really, really heavy. I really do appreciate the people who submitted their confessions. It takes a lot of guts to, write that out and, send the email. So I appreciate everyone who sent in their confessions. And if you'd like to see your confession in a future video, please send to the email in the description or in the beginning of the video. I appreciate it. And please leave a comment down below. I read every single comment, so I appreciate everyone who takes the time to comment. And I really do want to say thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means the world. Your guys' support means the world. This is the best community on YouTube, hands down. So it means the world for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy some other videos on the channel. So go check out some other videos. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some horrific confession threads where I read some of your guys' viewers of the Snook channel's confessions and also some confessions from Reddit. And oh boy, it is a wild mix. And today I have some of the most disturbing, depressing, and just downright horrific confession threads I have ever read. So you'll want to make sure to stick around. And I appreciate you stopping by. It means the world. And make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel subscriber goal is 1 million subscribers, so please subscribe. It helps more than you know. And all right, this video will be long enough already, so sit back, relax, grab a drink or grab a snack. And without further ado, let's get into some horrific confession threads. I was successfully tried and convicted for the murder of 2 people. Ask me anything. I'm going to avoid details that could give my identity away, though I'm sure someone will put the pieces together. In 2007, I was successfully tried and convicted for the murder of 2 individuals. One was a 31-year-old male, and the other was a 73-year-old man. At first, they tried to get me for 3 more, but there was a lack of evidence. It was pretty obvious they were just trying to pin whatever they could on me, and those cases were dropped within a month. I believe one of them has since been solved. Short version, the 31-year-old R-worded and beat my pregnant girlfriend. She lost the baby days later. I was deployed at the time, so I couldn't be there for her. She knew who it was, but refused to tell the police. They have a habit of making things worse, so I don't, and still don't fault her for that. The month I got back, she confessed to me it was her friend from school. I found him on Facebook and got his address. I arrived at his house at 7:57 p.m. and broke in through a glass door in the back garden. He confronted me moments later, and I killed him. To this day, I truly don't remember exactly what happened. I just know I beat him, and he stopped moving. I knew he was dead after a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure, so I pulled out my gun and shot him twice in the forehead and cheek. Then I fired 4 more times into his stomach and neck. This next part is the part I regret. His 73-year-old father confronted me with a shotgun. All I really saw was a gun, so I shot him in the chest. He died instantly. Shortly after, the police arrived and I was arrested without incident. I served 12 years of a 23-year sentence and was released earlier this year. I was very lucky in the way I was treated by the legal system in my country. That's the short version, I guess. Ask me anything. One user says, "Why were you released so early? Isn't first-degree murder usually punished by life in prison? Also, what happened to your relationship with your girlfriend and other people in your life? Other than killing the 73-year-old, is there any other effects that you regret?" And the OP responds and says, "I'm not American. Different system where I am. I am still with my girlfriend now. Most of my friends are guys I served with and we are still in contact. I regret the time I lost and I regret making such a mess. I believe the male I killed deserved it. I simply wish I'd killed him in a manner that hadn't uprooted my life and led to another man's death. Not that his death was anyone's fault but my own. I pulled the trigger. I have to own that." Someone else says, "How much time was there between the incident with the 31-year-old man and his father? Were you just waiting around for someone else to show up, or did he show up there immediately after? Also, what's it like spending so much time in prison?" And the OP responds saying, "I killed the 31-year-old male within a minute. I sort of took it in before shooting his body. I was only a few seconds after I started shooting until the man turned up. All I saw was his gun, so I killed him." And boring. Very boring. Lonely at times too. World goes on and you're stuck. I'm not saying I deserved better, but the prison system is broken. 99% of the guys in there, petty crooks or serious criminals, come out worse than when they went in. Another user says, "What do you do now? Have you had any trouble finding employment? What does your family/friends think? How old are you now?" And the OP responds saying, "Bike mechanic. Yes and no. Never going to be able to get a regular job, but there are programs in place that help people like me. Most of my friends served with me and don't judge me for what happened. I don't have any biological family. I'm in my 30s. Another user says, "Number one, are you sorry for what you did? And number two, about those other murders. You said one was solved, but what about the others? Why did they accuse you, and did you do it?" And the OP replies saying, "I regret killing the 73-year-old man. He was trying to defend his child, and he wasn't responsible. I don't regret killing the 31-year-old male, and I would do it all over again if I had a time machine. He deserved it." And then someone replies saying, "Sorry, just realized you never addressed my second question. Can you please?" And the OP responds saying, "Sorry, forgot to address that. No, I didn't kill them. I'm not a naturally violent person and would never randomly kill someone. What happened was a result of me wanting to get revenge and then getting caught up in the moment and firing without cause. I believe they linked me to the case because I was within the general area and there were also firearms related incidents. However, I genuinely did not commit those crimes. I wouldn't kill someone without reason. It's illogical." Someone else asks, "How much do you enjoy this AMA? Is it strange to relive it with strangers, or does it help you move forward?" And the OP responds saying, "It's interesting to discuss this with the general public. I wouldn't say I enjoy it, but it's interesting. I moved on a while ago. I just thought it would make for an interesting Q&A, and I've always wanted to do one and get some perspectives. I just don't want to become famous for what I did or deal with the media, so I never did it officially before." And then another user says, "What other actions could you or would you have taken versus breaking into his house and killing him?" And the OP coldly responds, "Probably would have killed him with carbon monoxide or dissolved his body and buried his teeth, etc., under the grave of a dog or something. That way, When sniffer dogs roll around, they'll dig up the dog's grave and the police will move on thinking that's all there was to find. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get away with murder if you just use your brain. I didn't. Confession. My wife cheated on me and I did something most people would regret, but I don't. Hey Snook, I'm a huge fan and I listen to your videos pretty much every day while I do my job. It makes time fly really fast. I don't need advice, but I kind of do need this off my shoulders. I'm embarrassed. I'm alone. I have no one to really tell this without feeling embarrassed or risking getting in trouble because I'm sure I would. I, 25 male, came home early and caught my wife cheating. I'm 25. And I never thought I'd be writing something like this. My wife and I have been together since high school. We started dating when I was 16. She was my first everything. We got married young and I truly believed we were endgame. She moved in with my family when I was 18. She was 20. My mom basically adopted her and soon after that we saved up together and bought our own home. I never once laid a hand on her in anger, not ever. But she knew the one line she could never cross: cheating, especially under my roof. Yesterday started like any normal workday. I was exhausted and not feeling great, so I clocked out early without telling her. I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe we could just relax together on the couch. When I pulled up, her car was in the driveway, but the house felt too quiet. Then I heard noises from upstairs. Moaning, the bed creaking. My stomach dropped. I don't even remember walking up the stairs. My heart was hammering. I pushed open the bedroom door, and there they were. My wife, completely unclothed, on top of some guy I'd never seen before. Both of them going at it in our bed. For a second, everything froze. Then the rage hit me like nothing I've ever felt. The guy saw me first and panicked. He tried to push her off of him, babbling that he didn't know she was married. My wife started crying, saying my name over and over like that would make it better. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just turned around, went straight to my closet, and came back with my Colt M1 911, loaded and pointed right at his face. "Get up," I said. Calm as hell. He scrambled off the bed, unclothed and shaking, hands in the air. My wife was sobbing, trying to cover herself with the sheets. I kept my gun steady on him. "You liked being with my wife in my house? Good. Now you're going to beat the shit out of her while I watch." He looked at me like I was crazy, begging, "Please no, man." I clicked the safety off and told him it was either her or his brains will be on the wall behind him. His choice. I had nothing to lose. I wasted 9 years of my life, brought her into my home when she had nowhere to go. I didn't care anymore. He was terrified, but he did it. He slapped her across the face, then kept going when I told him to not hold back. Punches to the body, the face, whatever I pointed at. She was screaming and crying, begging me to stop him, telling me she was sorry, that it was a mistake. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction watching it happen. When she was a bloody, bruised mess on the floor, I finally told him to get out. He ran out of my house, unclothed, without looking back. I left her there like that. I locked myself in the guest room with the gun for a while, then just left the house. I knew she wouldn't call the cops. She'd be too scared of getting him locked up for what just happened. I've never been charged for any of it. I kicked her out of the house, and we are divorcing, and we are trying to make it as clean as possible, but we also live in a state where infidelity is very frowned upon, so she won't get anything and I won't lose anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel right now. The anger is there, but mostly it's this numb emptiness mixed with something else I can't name. 9 years wasted. Had to grow up and mature at such an early age for what? Do I regret making him beat her? Not for a single second. She crossed the only line I ever told her not to and wasted half my life. My 50 female daughter and husband, 15 female and 49 male, died. My son, 18 male, recently attempted S-word. I feel like part of this is my fault, and now it's too late. I am not sure if this is the right place for this. My daughter died from cancer, a very fast-acting cancer which she chose not to get treatment for. Over the span of 4 months, she deteriorated and then died. During this time, my husband turned into a severe alcoholic and drug abuser. I got depressed, and as did my son. Watching my daughter, the sweetest child in the world, pass away like that was horrific. My husband's alcoholism and drug abuse, he was doing pills heavily as well, although tried to keep it a secret, spiraled out of control to the point where he was drinking a $20 bottle of vodka every day, and then some more after. He would often go out and not come home for the entire night. My son kept on trying to get him to stop, and I sort of tried, but I was so depressed that I just didn't have the heart to put in much emotional effort into him. I isolated myself completely and was like a zombie. My husband died in our basement bathroom, covered in his own vomit. He died from a mix of huge amounts of alcohol and huge amounts of pills mixed together. I knew he was doing pills, but I never knew the real extent of it until we found his stash of pills after he died. His death came about 3 to 4 months after my daughter's death. After my husband died, I sort of woke up from my daze. But not long after, I fell back into it. My son also fell into a horrible, deep depression. It wasn't only his dad and sister dying. His grades fell apart. He got rejected from almost every college except for community colleges. He gained well over 100 pounds in the year after his dad died. Both of us were just a mess. I didn't leave bed most days. He stayed in his room, doing whatever he would do. Video games, I imagined. I didn't ignore the signs completely the way I did with my husband. I tried to reach out to him, get him into therapy for a while, but my own depression was so bad that I was giving up on everything. I think at a certain point, we just left each other alone. In the 2 months before, we barely spoke at all. It wasn't hard. Our house is big, our rooms are far apart. And then he tried to commit S-word by jumping. He survived. He got a broken foot and his toe was all mangled, but he survived. I saw where he tried to jump off. It was a long distance. I don't even know how he managed to only break his foot. I feel such a wave of guilt flow over me since the incident, both for him and for my husband too. I didn't pay enough attention. I didn't give them what they needed. I was selfish, honestly. I am their mother and wife, and I just isolated myself instead of being with them and helping them and getting them through this. I constantly think that if I was more attentive, more demanding for my husband to get sober, then this wouldn't have happened. None of it. Losing my daughter was horrible, but we couldn't control that. But this is our decisions. And my presence influences their decisions arguably more than anything. I just don't know what to do. I want to help my son, but don't know how. And I feel he is ignoring my attempts to help him because I've ignored him for so long. I can't tell if he is still S-word. I can't tell if the second his foot heals, he is going to try again. I am awake in that I'm aware of my being in place instead of being a depressed zombie like I have been for the past 2 years. But I'm feeling hopeless again that I can't help. A year ago, I relapsed on H and recovered. I never told my wife or kids. I have a wife and 2 kids, aged 14 and 11. I was a H addict from 16 years old to 23 years old, which was when my first son was born. My wife helped me get sober and remains an amazing person and wife overall. Last year, my wife had surgery and got pain pills. I don't know what the fuck came over me, but I just wanted to try one to remember how good it felt. I was thinking, it was an H, right? So maybe I won't relapse? I can't even describe how stupid of a decision it was. I wasn't depressed or particularly yearning for H, but I just wanted to try it. Literally right away, it felt so unbelievably amazing that I took 2 more the next day. On day 3, it took about 4 to 5. I was high the entire day, feeling absolutely amazing. By day 5, I went to one of the local dealers and got drugs. Literally only took me 5 days to get back on it. My wife never got a hint. My kids never suspected anything. I was lucky this happened while my wife was recovering from her surgery. She was bedridden most of the day, so I was mostly free to do what I want. I didn't use a needle. I just blew it up my nose. I did it every single day for 2 weeks. The only suspicion was my daughter saying I was acting weird when I was high, and when my son went downstairs at night and I was mumbling because I was nodding out. He just assumed I was tired. I knew I had to do something. I wanted to just leave, run away to New Mexico or something and just do H the entire time, then maybe come back. At the time, it was literally all I wanted. I kept making these horrible, immoral excuses for my usage, like, oh, my kids are old enough, and my wife is a good mom. They don't even need me. I can just run away and do H on an island forever. That was the kind of shit I would think. I knew it was bullshit, but it's so damn powerful. I ended up quitting. I just sort of forced myself to stop, which previously when I was a teen seemed impossible, but now it feels like I have more to live for. It's been a whole year since then. I remember because my wife's surgery was the day before the 4th of July. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, OP, the cliche comes to mind, it's not a sin to fall down, but it is a sin to not get back up. You turn to a dangerous but familiar coping mechanism in an undoubtedly stressful time in your life. 2 kids, bedridden wife, etc. But you realized you were on a bad path and pulled yourself back. If anything, I'd say it's something to learn from and be proud of. Someone else says, I would encourage you to tell your wife for one reason and one reason only. Life happens, and it's possible you'll end up with pills in your home again due to some other reason. Your wife needs to lock that shit down and remove your ability to get them. It's the same as some alcoholics can never, ever have alcohol in their home or they will drink it. If you feel you can't tell her about your relapse and recovery, then tell her you struggled with having them accessible in your home, and if anything like that comes in again, she is going to need to lock that shit down. You did extremely well to bring yourself back, OP. All I'm suggesting is to not put yourself in that position again. And then someone replies saying, yes, I agree with this. OP should not hide it from her. Someone else says, it's crazy how quickly something that we worked so hard for could get taken away if we don't take the time to appreciate what we do have. Good for you. Someone else says, are you sure she didn't notice? Taking 8 pills from a bottle is pretty noticeable. Usually after surgery, they don't give you that many that you wouldn't notice 8 missing. And the OP replies saying, I probably should have mentioned that she didn't even use the pills except for the first day. I think she just assumed I threw the bottle out eventually when she told me she wasn't going to take them anymore. I've been blackmailing the local drug dealer. About 6 months ago, the druggy woman in my street had her brother move in with her. This guy is dodgy. He's ripping off disability. I've seen him breaking into cars and was watching my wife one night as she got home from work. Anyways, we had a knock on the door a few months ago. It was a junkie wanting crystal. She got the street numbers mixed up. I watched as she went into the house and thought, that's how they make their money. Anyways, I started watching the house. I work from home a lot and see a lot. I started to write down and watch every car that pulled up to their house. My wife works for a guy who's best friends to a cop, and she mentioned to him about the dealing. He said it'll take at least 12 months before the police would even investigate. So I started a Bitcoin account and sent them a letter saying I want $1,000 a week put into the account, or I'll go to the police with everything I got. I put in a couple of photos and videos taken from the front of their house and with people and cars. So far, I've made $10,000, and with a baby on the way, it's coming in handy. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, playing with the devil, dude. I'm afraid for you. Another person says, good way to get yourself killed. And the OP says, I'm not in the States. This guy, from what I can tell, isn't a user of it. Does dope though. And then someone replies saying, you don't think drug dealers kill people in other countries besides the US? You are seriously creating a situation that will lead to jeopardizing you and your baby. And that's basically what everyone else in the comments was saying, how it's not worth jeopardizing your life blackmailing a drug dealer who may or may not be dangerous, and pay some money to track down whoever is blackmailing him and ending up hurting or killing the OP. But the OP did post about 22 days ago from the latest update, because this was posted 7 years ago. And so the OP is still alive, but whether or not something happened, I don't know. I bullied a kid who later died, and I feel terrible about it. Back in elementary school, there was this kid, we'll call him Jay, who was kind of an outcast. One day during recess, Jay scratched another kid who made the kid bleed. It was a total accident. I saw one of my buddies totally bashing Jay for doing it, and Jay started crying. Instead of trying to help out, I joined in and kept saying, "What is wrong with you?" and making Jay feel like total garbage. About 2 weeks later, I was in class and I got a cut on my finger and it started bleeding. Jay saw it and immediately ran to help and make a makeshift band-aid out of a tissue and tape to make sure I'd quit bleeding. Super sweet kid who decided to help me out, even though I was a total asshole to him. Jay ended up moving to a new school about 2 years later, and I found out he died by getting crushed by a trailer attached to a four-wheeler. I hope you're in a better place, Jay, and I'm so sorry for being an asshole to you. Such a sweet guy, and I'll never forget you, man. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I believe this. There was a girl in school when I was a kid who was mentally challenged. I never spoke a word to her. However, my friends and I would make fun of her behind her back. We were stupid kids. I heard she died a few years later of some disease, and I always think about her, even to this day. I was a dumb kid and she was just another person trying to get by. And the OP replies saying, yeah, I'm not lying. Just looked up his obituary today and sent a message to his family. Another user says, it seems we've all been mean as kids at some point in time. I was a total asshole to a lot of people. One kid in particular, I was extraordinarily mean to in high school. His family ended up dying in a car crash, which put him in an even darker place. I, of course, laid off of him after what happened, but I feel if I would have never been so hard on him, he would have been in a better place to get through this. I can't say I'll ever forgive myself for the ways I've treated people. I'll spend my life trying to make up for it. I've damned myself for sure. You get so caught up in things, especially in school, you don't realize how mean life itself can be. Support and love each other in life. It's already hard enough on people, especially our youth. And then someone else says, hey man, at least you feel remorseful. Just keep your head high. Think of them often and always treat people like it's the last time you're going to see them. You're a good person. Remind yourself that every day. Don't allow your future self to be a product of your past. I'm an ex-hitman that has just been released. Ask me anything. Hello, Reddit. Let me tell you my story. I've recently been released from jail on parole after serving 7 years. Let me explain why I was in the can. As the title says, I used to be a gunman for hire, or a hitman. I took many jobs that included extortion, kidnapping, blackmail, and some others I'm not extremely proud of mentioning. Anywho, I met some amazing people in the can, and I've got plenty of stories and lessons that I learned throughout my time. I'm also open to any questions about my old job. Thank you. And now let's get into the comments and questions. Someone says, how did you get into that line of work? How did you get caught? Did you ever feel guilty during or after a job? Or ever consider a different line of work? How did you ever find the clients? I don't imagine you can post an ad on Craigslist or something, LOL. Do you have a significant other and or child? If so, do they know what you did? If so, what do they think? Do your parents know? If so, what do they think? What are your plans moving forward? In the OP responds saying, I was introduced to it by a friend of mine who was in the same line of work. I got caught due to evidence left at a kidnapping scene. No, I never felt guilty. I detached myself from the job a lot. We found clients throughout word of mouth that wasn't a big secret, but we had proxies that would find genuine jobs for us. Yes, I have a fiance. She didn't like me doing it at all, and in fact, she left me multiple times to do it. But since I got released, things have gotten better. Probably trying MMA/boxing instructor. Someone else says, do you feel your time in prison as well served or just a momentarily pause? Did it result in any real changes to your perspective on life and your purpose on it? And the OP responds saying, to be honest, I was used to the routine every day. At the beginning of my time, I kept to myself, but humans need contact and can't live in complete solidarity. Yes, it was scary. But if you don't beef with anyone, prison isn't as bad as people make it out to be. It showed me that people can truly change. I've met murderers that hated themselves for what they've done and believe they themselves shouldn't be released. So yes, the biggest change I had to deal with was adjusting to the outside world when I got released. Sorry for the long answer. Another user says, hardest hit to carry out either psychologically or physically? And the OP responds saying, well, I didn't feel much towards the jobs I have done, but it was very difficult in the beginning. We had to extract information from a POI, so it was my first time torturing someone to the extent we did it. I'll never forget it, but it was a giant learning curve. And the user responds to the OP there saying, understandable. I'm sure in time the faces and names kind of blur together and you just get desensitized to it. And the OP responds saying, yeah, it all depends on the mindset you have. If you think of them as people while you're doing it, you wouldn't get a wink of sleep. Another user asks, most gruesome way you killed someone? And the OP responds saying, I had a job in the late 2000s. It was me and 2 other people. We had a job to take care of a person that was harassing the wife of one of our customers. We were paid to get him to back off, but we did some digging on him and found out he was also a registered SO. I'm not an emotional guy. I'm 6'4" and an absolute unit, so stuff doesn't really faze me. But when children are involved, I'm a different person. I won't go into much detail here, but we spent hours in latex gloves, a dingy basement, rusty handheld tools such as hammers, a crowbar, a wrench, and pliers. We made sure he stayed conscious the entire time by administering some adrenaline we had obtained from a client. But eventually, it was too much for him, and he died due to his body going into shock from the sudden loss of blood near the end of our meeting with him. Someone else says, LMAO at the idiots believing this. Paroled after 7 years for multiple murders? Not even in the most liberal countries do they do that. And the OP responds saying, actually, cooperation and good behavior gets you off a long time if you actually admitted to your crimes in the first place. The crimes held against me weren't murders. And the person replies saying, so you're admitting to murders that you weren't charged with on Reddit? And the OP responds saying, never said I'd admitted to doing them, but planning on them, yes. Plus, I've already done my time. It isn't illegal to state public knowledge. And then the person replies saying, LMFAO, you admit to doing them, and it isn't public knowledge if you weren't charged with them. Just give it up, you can only fool fools. And the OP responds saying, the fact I'm not attempting to fool anyone, though, kind of means you're not believing the truth. Isn't that the meaning of a fool? And as I said, it was a charge of conspiracy to commit. And so what do you guys think? Do you think this guy's an actual hitman or ex-hitman posting on Reddit, or just another troll? I don't know, but leave your thoughts down below. I spent a year hiding from the government. Hi Snook, long-time listener. You've helped a lot of long shifts fly by, so I wanted to share something. This might be more tame compared to some of your other wilder submissions, but I feel like it could help some viewers out there. To start, growing up, I never wanted to join the military. It wasn't a family tradition or anything, just an erratic and spontaneous decision overnight. I was 19, lost and looking for a thrill, or maybe just a purpose. The day after I submitted my info on the website, I got a call from a recruiter. And a month later, I was on the yellow footprints at MCRD San Diego. I was a problem recruit at first. I hated being there, and the mental grind was a massive shock to my system. I regretted it almost immediately, but during phase 2, something in my brain clicked and I became an example of a good recruit. My efforts paid off and I graduated with a meritorious promotion to PFC. I gave a huge amount of my transformation to one of my drill instructors. He destroyed me and rebuilt me into a prime Marine. He'd always say, pressure makes diamonds, and goddamn, did he put me through a lot of pressure. Then came boot leave. Typically it's 10 days, but mine was extended to 30 because there wasn't space in the next MCT cycle. My family saw an immediate change in me, not just my appearance, but my demeanor. On the outside, I seemed like a brand new person, but something lingered in the back of my mind, like the hairs on the back of my neck were still clinging to my past. Around day 10 of leave, all that fresh boot motivation just evaporated. I started drinking heavily. I wouldn't even show up to recruiting duty without 99-cent banana liquor for breakfast, still hungover from the night before. When the day came to check into MCT, I flew back to San Diego a day early and booked a hotel. I can't even pinpoint the cause, but I had this heavy sense of impending doom, an unshakable anxiety that kept me up all night. I just laid there, ate a meal, and then I just didn't go. No big thought, just action. I booked a flight for the same day back home. For over a year, I was ghost. Once you hit 30 days, you're considered a deserter. I lived in a state of constant low-level terror for over 12 months. I worked odd jobs at night and took Ubers everywhere so I didn't have to drive. There were a few times I was in a car that got pulled over, and I just sit there with my heart hammering, waiting for them to ask for my ID and see the warrant. They never did. The paranoia kept me inside, but the shame is what kept me away from the people I loved. I missed a lot of family events and birthdays just because of the guilt. I hated showing my face and seeing the looks of disappointment, so I just used the medical reasons excuse to explain why I wasn't home. I felt like a fraud every time someone congratulated me. The only person who wasn't dumb enough to believe me was my 18-year-old brother. I never told him directly I was AWOL, but he knew. And also, AWOL means absent without leave, and also this can lead to severe jail time, 18 months to 5 years, or you'll also have a loss of pay and benefits. And so basically, it's a big deal to just desert the military, so that's why the OP is so concerned. But let's continue. He just looked at me and told me to fix it. I ended up severely depressed and tried to commit S-word a couple of times during that year, but I just couldn't run from my problems. Then the inevitable finally came, but it wasn't the police. My little brother committed S-word. I was so blinded by my own situation that I failed to see the demons he was battling. The shock snapped me back to reality. I didn't care about the jail time or the warrants anymore. Nothing mattered compared to him. A month after his funeral, I called the military police and explained everything. I flew back to San Diego, turned myself in at the gate, and was promptly arrested. I expected the worst, but it was mostly just a mountain of paperwork. I was demoted, did my 45-45, and got administratively separated 4 months later. It's been 8 months since I lost him. I sometimes wonder if that sense of impending doom I felt in that hotel was a warning about my brother, and I was just too self-absorbed to see it. If you're in a similar situation with the military, do yourself a favor and just turn yourself in. It's not worth the nightmare. And to the ones dealing with S-word thoughts, please reach out. Give a cry for help that screams at the whole world, because I promise you, sitting in the dark with your secrets isn't worth it. If anybody watching has a similar situation going on with the military, leave a comment on the video. I'll be checking them and I'll reach out to offer whatever advice I can. I miss you so much, bro. I'm trying to fix it. Just like you said. I just found out my husband is a R-wordist. I, 44 female, have been married to my husband for 17 years. We have 3 children together, ages 15, 13, and 10. We've had a perfect marriage. I didn't know my husband in childhood at all. He moved to my state a few months before we got together. We're about to be moving houses and I was packing things away, and I found this old journal. I thought maybe it was mine, but as I got to reading, I realized it wasn't. It was my husband's guilty confession about his friends and him having intimacy with this passed out drunk girl in the college in his hometown. It goes into great detail about the things they did to her and how she woke up in the middle of it. 17 years I spent with this man. He treated me so great. Amazing provider, partner, husband. He's an amazing father to our kids. We have 2 girls. I'm not sure how he can look at them, hug them, and know what he did to someone else's daughter. I'm disgusted. I'm appalled. I plan to divorce. This breaks my heart. I'm so in love with my husband, but I no longer see my husband. I see a R-wordist. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I had this happen to me. I was that girl. And I woke up in the middle of it all. It's been 30 years, but the vivid images still haunt me. I killed my stalker, and I'm not sorry. I'm writing this to share a series of deeply unsettling events I've experienced recently. For several years, I was targeted by a stalker, an ex-boyfriend who became obsessed with me after I moved away for college. This situation involved persistent harassment through violent messages and several disturbing incidents where items were left at my home. I eventually discovered he had been remotely accessing my laptop's webcam using software he installed while we were dating. Although I reported these incidents to the police at the time, no action was taken. Approximately 4 weeks ago, while driving home late at night in a rural area, I struck an individual who ran into the road. Upon stopping, I discovered it was the man who had been stalking me. I immediately called 911, and he was airlifted to a hospital but unfortunately passed away en route. While I am physically safe and understand I'm being protected under the Good Samaritan law, I'm still processing the shock of this situation. My vehicle sustained only minor paint damage, and while the incident aggravated some internal stitches from a recent surgery, I am managing my recovery. I felt it was important to document these details and get this off my chest. I hope to not scare people or inspire to hit their stalkers with their car, but damn, if it didn't feel like a weight off of my chest when I heard he was pronounced dead. I'm a gambling addict. Ask me anything. That's me, a degenerate addict, and I often hate myself because I have so little control. I'm female, middle-aged, and my game of choice is slots. Yes, I dream of hitting it big. But if I did, I'd probably be one of those people you read about or hear about that would lose it all eventually. It's the dopamine hit. The thrill of what may line up when I press that button. I just want more when I get a win. And almost all of my wins end up getting played back, often at the same session. I've learned to only take the money I'm going to play with and that I need to get there, gas or food, because I know it's highly unlikely that I'm walking out with anything. I've drove away with less than $2 in change in my pocket and been hungry. Not starving, but hungry for a meal on my way home. I've done without food or buying less food during the week so I can take more cash to the casino, barely paying or paying late the essential bills, and now behind on my car payment because of my addiction. It spiraled badly in the last 2 months as I started going to a nearby casino, and after winning and playing it back a few thousand, I got sucked in. I kept getting good free play offers on average 3 times a week for a couple of months now, so that made it easier to keep going back and I'd take some cash that I should haven't been spending. The free play has dried up now, except one more lowish offer tomorrow. I'm telling myself I'm not going tomorrow, but it's tempting me. And I lie to myself, saying just one more time. And maybe I will win enough to get myself out of this hole, but chances are, if I did get lucky, I just play it back and walk out with that feeling of pure hatred of myself and feeling hopeless. I've been a gambling addict for 15 years, spiraling every few months. It's hell. And now let's get into some of the top questions and comments. Do you logically understand that you will always lose money, even if you win small amounts? If so, what keeps the thrill going? Is it the flashy screens and the numbers? In the OP responds saying, yes, I do logically understand. It's the dopamine hit for me. Slots these days are designed to hook you, and they are very addictive by design. They have always been, of course, but the last 10 years, probably more so than ever. Someone else says, have you tried to get help? I had an early stage addiction, so I forced myself to play them at the lowest bet until I hated them. I don't even think about playing them anymore. And the OP responds saying, I've went for help, but nothing sticks long term. Another user says, how did it start? I can understand drug addictions, but never gambling addictions. The few times I gambled, I just slowly lost my money till I left. Even when I won, it was just stressful because I wanted to keep gambling, but I knew I should have just left with the money. I don't know. It was just not fun at all to me, just stressful to be honest. And the OP responds saying, maybe the root of it is my genetics. My father was an alcoholic. I liked games as a kid, board games, card games, and sometimes the occasional game of poker. I don't recall the poker games being for real money, however. A very difficult life started for me in my preteen years. Maybe it was the small hits of dopamine and my distraction from life that rooted it way back then. My first trip to a casino was in the late 90s, and shortly after I realized that this could be bad for me. I don't go that often back then, and sometimes I would go a few years in between visits, so it wasn't an issue for me back then, but I felt the danger. When I really sank the boat was when I started gambling online. Some poker and then slots. That was about 15 years ago. I no longer gamble online, but now there is a casino about 1.5 hours away. And then someone replies saying, "Damn, an hour and a half? How frequently do you go? Do they give you rooms?" And the OP says, "The last 2 months, 2 times a week, occasionally a third time in the same week. The free play offers had a lot to do with my binge. It's over now. Big offers of free play is done, and I just do not have the cash because of what I've blown through in the last 2 months, and I've got to catch up with my car payment. I've even lost my weight because I've played my grocery money. How stupid is that?" Someone else says, "Have you ever lost everything?" And the OP responds saying, "I've played away almost every bit of money I had with me on most trips, sometimes going home with less than $1 and change. Luckily, I don't have rent or mortgage. I have the usual expenses, and I'm behind on my car payment because of my latest binge." And we have not heard from the OP since then. This was about 2 years ago, so who knows what happened to the OP, if they kept spiraling and kept having these binge sessions and binge gambling sessions, or if they finally got the help they needed. But I really hope the OP went to some Gamblers Anonymous or got some help or went to therapy or something to help get over this addiction, because, I mean, the OP said it. They've been gambling on and off for 15 years. And obviously they can't keep it up because the OP is behind on their car payment. They're not feeding themselves. And obviously it's very dangerous. And so I really hope that the OP was able to get off of gambling and get the help that they so desperately needed. My mistake could cost my patient's life. This has been eating away at me for so many days. I'm not sleeping well, nor can I even live my life without this hanging over me every second of my day. So forgive me if I mess up this post in any way. This patient has been with me for months. It's a complicated case, so we couldn't let them go home with all the knots tied up. So this day I decided to give them some release of their pain, a heat treatment. You can call it malpractice, incompetence, a lack of judgment, but what happened was that it was too hot and I didn't pick it up because of their skin condition. So we only found out the next day that they had developed a blister. All things considered, it could have been worse. Over the next few days, it was healing well. I went on holiday a short while after that. Also, just to interject, I think we have to assume this is a doctor, and the doctor messed up treating a patient. I just wanted to interject there, but let's continue. But it all came crashing down while I was away. The broken skin developed an infection, and now my patient's not even under my care anymore. They have been sent to another setting to get better care. I know how this story can go. We know how infections can go. It's still an ongoing case, and I literally feel like dying every day knowing I have caused harm to this person and knowing what could happen at any time. I made a mistake. It was 100% my fault and that of my incompetence. I work in the healthcare sector, so I have to keep as much confidential as possible, but I really have to talk to someone before my thoughts of S-word get the better of me. Edit. I know this post is old, but I'd like to post an update. Mostly for myself. In the time I originally posted this, the patient returned to my care, and we were able to send the patient home. Though it was in a less than ideal state, we've reached this point and it's honestly rattling. I'm still dealing with the consequences of my actions, and some days are a little tougher than others, but at the very least, I'm moving forward. Thank you to all those who've responded. It helps a lot to keep me grounded, and I still come back from time to time when I feel like I need it. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Mistakes happen. In your sector, it is more costly, but it doesn't mean we're not human. Your intentions were good and you will learn something to benefit you and your patients in the future. Yes, it sucks, but you doing something stupid will not help make this better. Think of all the people you have and will help in your life that you can't if you died. One mistake doesn't erase your heart. And the OP responds saying, "Thank you so much. It's been difficult keeping this quiet, so posting my feelings as well as reading your comment has lifted a lot of weight I put on myself. I should only think of how I can be better to my current and future patients from here on." Another user says, "From an outside perspective, I'll say that it doesn't really seem like you're at fault. We both know that you had good intentions and that it was just a mistake. But I know that it's a very real issue for you and that you need someone in your corner. Accidents happen, and so long as you try to make up for / fix what's wrong, I believe you've made a point to warrant forgiveness. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Just learn and apply what you learn to the next situation." And the OP responds saying, "Hey there. I know it's been a few days, but I'd still like to thank you for your responding. My way of coping right now is to push this down and focus on the tasks at hand instead, but when the difficult feelings dredges back up again, I come back to this post to pull myself back together. It may not be today, but I do believe one day I'll learn to forgive myself." I beat up a kid because he kicked my elderly dog. I was reminded of this when I read a venting post in r/dogs about a woman who restrained herself from slapping a child when the kid kicked her dog. Several years ago, I was in a similar situation, and I didn't restrain myself at all. When I was 23, my 14-year-old Beagle mix was diagnosed with a fast-acting cancer that had already started to spread. I'd had him since he was 1, and I made it my mission in life to keep him as comfortable and happy as I could. There was nothing he loved more than walking in the park, so I packed him up in the car and went for a short and slow walk every day. He was the sweetest, friendliest boy, so it was absolutely shocking when, on one of our walks, a boy we'd never seen before, who was probably 10 to 11, ran up to us screaming, "I hate your ugly, gross dog, lady." My initial response was, okay, we're just passing by, so goodbye then. Then the little jerk let out an inhuman screech and ran forward and kicked my dog in the stomach. My poor boy yelped and whimpered and crumpled to the ground in pain. And the kid laughed in that horribly demonic way only a child can laugh, and then reeled back to kick again. Before that moment, I had never experienced rage as an adult. I'm pretty evenly keeled person, and I'm typically a pacifist and diplomat. This was the first and only time in my life that I saw red. Before my brain had even processed what happened, I'd already lunged at the kid and sort of half grabbed, half shoved him by the neck and pushed him to the ground very hard. He immediately burst into tears, and that's when I should have stopped, but I couldn't stop. It was the only time in my life when I felt like I wasn't in control of my actions. The kid was scrambling to get up and I kicked him really hard in the side, several times. Then I grabbed him by his sweatshirt hood and screamed in his face at the top of my lungs. I screamed some really horrible things at him, something like that I'd find him and kill him slowly if he ever tried to hurt another animal again, but it felt like the words were just erupting out of me with no thought or effort. At that point, the kid was ugly sobbing and apologizing and begging me to let him go, which I guess helped me to sort of snap out of it, because I felt myself, or lack of a better description, return to my body. I felt totally numb and sort of inebriated, but the rage was gone. I let the kid go and told him to go find his mom, and hastily added, "And don't ever kick a dog again." He ran off crying. I scooped my dog up, hustled to my car, and left. I was oddly calm. I drove to the vet and told them only that a child had kicked my dog and ran away, and I wanted to get him checked out. They checked him out and said there was no serious damage other than the beginnings of a bruise. I drove us home. got into the shower, and sobbed for hours. I had no idea until then that I was capable of doing anything like that. I started therapy the next week to deal with the anger issues I didn't know I had until then. And I've never had another issue like that. I didn't go back to that park for years, for fear of running into that kid again. Mostly for fear that his parents would be there and get me arrested. I took Freddie to a different park that was a little further from the house, but he actually liked it more because it had good, soft dirt to dig in until his final day on Earth. I think about that kid sometimes, though. I wonder how my actions impacted him. Did I scare him straight? Did I teach him to be more violent? Does he have some complex about short women now because a short woman beat him up when he was a kid? He's got to be at least a teenager by now. I wonder how often he thinks about it, if ever. I wonder if he sees himself as being entirely the victim, or if by now he's loved and lost a pet, and understands the drive behind what I did. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, just recently I had a guy at an off-leash dog beach repeatedly swing a branch at my dog and abuse me. If it weren't for his young children being there with him, I think I would have been looking at a pretty serious assault charge, to be honest. Seeing someone unprovoked do that sort of shit to your dog is also probably the most rage-inducing thing I've experienced in my adult life. And the OP replies saying, since Freddie, I've always had very large dogs, Rotties and the like. And I think one of the reasons I made that choice is because most people don't mess with them. Seeing anything bad happen to my or anyone's dog is still the only thing that makes me top shelf angry, and probably the only scenario in which I would act out that way again. People who abuse animals are the lowest of the low, and I'd have no issue beating the shit out of any adult who so much took a swing at my dog. But it's the fact that I did it to a child that I feel I was wrong. Someone else replies saying, you didn't do serious damage or cause any horrible mental trauma. Normally, I don't condone things like that. But who the fuck kicks a dog in the stomach and calls it ugly for no reason? I can't imagine someone being so shitty. Worst case scenario, you taught the little shit a lesson about being an asshole to animals. Don't stress too much about it. And the OP responds saying, I very possibly broke one or more of his ribs. If I'm being honest with myself about how hard I kicked him, like he definitely didn't die from his injuries or anything close to that, but he was fine to run off. So he was fine enough to recover. But he may have had some lasting injuries. I don't stress about it as much as I do think about it. It's the only violent thing I've ever done to someone who I was physically stronger than. I know that he was an awful little punk kid, but I still feel bad for not being a better adult and more in control of my actions. And alright guys, that wraps up some horrific confession threads. This was a wild video. And what did you think? Comment down below your thoughts. I read every single comment on every single video, so please leave your comments, concerns, and feedback down below. I love you guys, and I love the comments and the community we've built here. And I'm glad that some of you guys can get some relief from sending in a confession. And if you'd like to see a confession in a future video, please send it to the email in the description. Thank you. I appreciate everyone who sends in their confessions, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of relief if you're holding on to anything super, deep or something that disturbs you. And I think it's nice to have that outlet for many people. So thank you everyone who sends in their confessions. And if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will enjoy some other videos on the channel. So go check out some other videos on the channel. Thank you. And all right, this was enough yapping from me. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And this is Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're getting into some scary Reddit threads. You guys have been loving these Reddit threads videos, and I love recording them. So comment down below and let me know if you'd like to see more Reddit thread videos in the future. And today, like the title says, we're getting into some scary Reddit threads, and today's threads are scary, weird, interesting, and you'll want to just make sure to stick around. And yeah, I just appreciate you stopping by. It means the world. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, this video will be long enough already. So without further ado, let's get into some scary Reddit threads. Hairstylist has been taking/keeping my hair. Originally posted to r/true off my chest, and the post reads as follows. I'm weirded out. I'm also going to be vague because obvious reasons. I'm 30s female, and my stylist is 40s. I got my haircut today at a stylist I've been using for about 9 months now. I think this is my 6th appointment with them. I usually do a trim or cut/style. Today I went from long hair, high lower back to an A-line bob. Again, since I started seeing this person, I usually get current style maintenance/trim. This time was a dramatic length adjustment, so they took a picture of the cut length in the floor to add to their social media, then intending to add before/after hours too. That's all totally fine and normal. They go grab a broom, sweep up the hair, and place the dustpan on the counter for a bit. Again, normal. They grab the broom and pan and head to the back of the shop. They're gone a few minutes, no biggie. Then they go out to smoke. But here's where it gets weird. The bathroom is in the back of the shop too. I need to go and step into the back. I don't really notice anything on the way into the bathroom. I go and start to head back out, but I notice my name on a small clear tote on the table. It has no lid, and it has my hair in it. At first, I didn't really think much of it, but I looked closer and see it's not just today's discarded hair, but looks like at least a few of my trim sessions mixed with, it looked like poopery and a little sand or something, and printed pictures of the hair with dates. The printer is sitting right next to it with today's discarded hair pick in the tray. There didn't seem to be any other containers like this when I looked around. It was really fucking weird. So I took a picture on my phone. I honestly didn't know what to think or do and went back out into the salon. They came back in and I mentioned that I went to the restroom and they seemed to freak out a little but didn't mention it. I didn't really know what to say, so I just let them finish styling my hair, paid, and left. As a socially anxious introvert, this was my nightmare. I got home, and the more I looked at the picture, the more ick I got. I ended up texting them an hour ago, sending the picture, and requesting they remove the weird box of me and asking for an explanation. I said, quote, "Hey, so I saw this and didn't know what to make of it. Can you help me understand what this is and why you have it? I'm not comfortable with you having this and request you please discard the contents. Also, even though I loved my cut, I believe it's best if I find a different stylist." They haven't responded. LOL, what the fuck? And I mean, that is very, very weird. Obviously, the stylist is up to something because, like the OP said, they got a little bit freaked out when they came back and said that they used the restroom. And so, God, this is very weird. But let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Wow, that sounds strange. I'm curious as well. Good for you for sending the text message. I see your message as mature, fair, and calm." And I completely agree. I think the OP's text message was as fair and calm as it could have been, instead of being like, "What the fuck are you doing with my hair," and pictures of it. And then the OP responds to that comment saying, "I appreciate that, but full disclosure, it took me a few hours to get calm enough to send that. I'm totally freaked out." Someone else says, "You absolutely handled it better than I would have. I would have taken it and confronted them. This is really the beginning of some crazy I survived episode. Thank God you're not going back." And the OP responded saying, "I honestly had no clue how to respond. The whole situation was so bizarre, and I can't imagine what the purpose of this would be. I told my husband about it, and he got goosebumps, which was super scary for me, and it made me feel like I may have underreacted to the issue. But I guess I'm glad I got out without a confrontation while there, because who knows what may have happened if I'd brought it up then." And that's a good point. The person could have got defensive and done something irrational. But then the OP posts an update about 1 week later, and let's get into that update. It's been about a week, and with the holiday, I've been all over the place, but I ended up going to law enforcement to make a report last Monday. I'll likely end up going back if this person keeps contacting me like they have been. I'll give a little timeline. Last Saturday, haircut and discovered the weird tub full of my hair. Texted stylist about the weird tub and said I'd be finding a new stylist. Hairstylist didn't respond. This is where I left off in the last post. A lot has happened since then. Sunday, I woke up to a bunch of texts from the stylist. It woke me up because even though I have DND on my phone, I have a setting that overrides that if there are repeated contact attempts over 3 in case of emergencies. Here's what I got. Copied and pasted. 3:49 a.m. Quote, I don't recommend going to a different stylist because of this. It's not a big deal. Small towns and people talk, and you may not find a new that will take you after this, so I'd reconsider. I don't like threats. And then 2 minutes later, so I have your biological material and it's mine property now. I can do what I want with it. I kept it because I can, and it means a lot to me. That is wildly creepy. And then 3 minutes later, why you send the pic? I know what it looks like. It's mine. And then 6 minutes later, you need to respond to me because I think it's a misunderstanding about what this is. It's NBT, and you saying you are switching stylists has me triggered. I do good work, clapping emoji. You said so. And then before I continue, quick note, these are all super late at night. 3:50 a.m., 4 a.m. I mean, maybe the stylist is up, but that is super late at night for the stylist to be responding. So I think that's just kind of a creepy side note. But then the stylist sends another text message 4 minutes later saying, I also charge a $350 client separation fee. So yeah, you can't just say you're switching stylists with more consequences. And I know you said you already tried a few people before me. They not many beauty people in the area. And then about 7 minutes later, asking for an explanation for a stylist having hair in a salon is crazy. What else would you find hair at? I didn't do nothing wrong, but I will get rid of it if you are gonna cry about it, but only if you say you won't be switching to new one else for your hair care. You made a lot as a client and always tip well and Indo good work, so it doesn't make sense, and you know that, so maybe don't threaten someone who does your hair or hurt their heart emoji by making accusatory statements. And then the OP says, I didn't respond to any of those that morning because it was so insane to me. I need to process things fully before I make a decision on how to deal with it, so I just didn't respond. Sunday afternoon, I start getting phone calls. This person called me 14 times that afternoon. About every other call, they left a voicemail. Most of the voicemails just said, call me back or text me back, but 2 of them were unhinged. I'm going to paraphrase, but the gist of the first one was, sounds like they're crying. Call me back. I'm getting scared you won't come back for me, for your hair for real. I just like how your hair feels. That's why I kept it. Call me. The second unhinged message was left late Sunday night at 11:38 p.m. and it said, quote, I got rid of it except for one lock. I found out I like watching your hair burn more than I liked keeping it. That is wildly creepy. I didn't respond to any of those messages, calls, or texts. This whole thing had me freaked out now. I decided by that time I was taking Monday off work to go to the police. Even if they couldn't do anything, I wanted a filed report of the weirdness. I woke up Monday to an email from the stylist with an invoice of $375 for client breach of contract fee as the chargeable line item. Again, copy and pasting here. The email body was just, quote, for being a bitch. It was sent from their business email too, so they're really doing everything they can to ruin themselves. Even if I had a contract with this nutter, which I don't, the original amount was for $350. They can't even get their extortion fees right. I did email them back stating that we had no contract and to cease all further communication with me from this point forward. I got ready and started heading to the police station around 9:45 Monday morning. I live in a rural area, so there are portions of my drive to and from our main town that doesn't have cell reception. When I finally got to town, I had 4 voicemails. I knew immediately who they were from. I talked to one of the officers on staff. They took my statements, a copy of the emails, asked me to forward all the texts and screenshots of the numbers of calls. They said at the least, the calls and texts could be considered menacing and harassment, but the voicemail where they mentioned how they like burning my hair was potentially concerning. The officer advised I contact a legal representative in case this person tries to take the bogus invoice to a civil suit court. And they said I'm welcome to change my number, but having the piling evidence if they continue to contact me after I explicitly told them not to in the email would only help me. I reached out to a lawyer Tuesday and left a detailed message regarding the situation. They are apparently out of the office until next Wednesday for the holiday, so we'll see if they have any advice. I've since received many texts and calls from the stylist. They sent a happy Thanksgiving text on Thursday morning as well. Regardless, they're giving me a lot of evidentiary material to work with, but I'm so unsettled. I can't wait to hear from the lawyer this week. And now let's get into some of the top comments on that update. Someone says, OP, this person is an actual psychopath. Please keep yourself safe and aware. They could do some unexpected, unhinged shit at any moment now that their obsession has turned on them. And the OP responds saying, I'm taking every possible measure to prevent anything else from occurring. But you're not far off the mark. This person is certainly not stable. I found out more that I will include once I can confirm without a doubt it is true. But regardless, I really appreciate everyone's concern. I'm doing everything I am legally able to keep safe. And then the OP makes a mini update in the comments that reads as follows. I woke up to new comments and requests for updates. Firstly, I am okay and safe for now. The person has continued to contact me on a regular basis via phone and email. I do have personal protection that I'm comfortable with and can wield with accuracy. But I'm nearly certain this person does not know where I live, so I don't anticipate any type of confrontation here. Our house and property has complete camera coverage as well. If anyone or anything shows up, we are well aware. I will be posting a more in-depth update with more texts and emails up to this point, and regarding a specific incident that happened on Friday. On Tuesday, I have an appointment to speak with another officer, then to discuss the potential of criminal action and legal consequences for the stylist as a result. Thank you all for your concern and the validation that this is absolutely insane. I'll leave you with a text from this past week, one that I think you'll all enjoy. Question, used for a model of how not to make friends. Once again, copy and pasted. 5:12 a.m. quote, don't never say never. You're never coming back. Don't make me laugh. I don't want your ass back. You can beg me though. Might help. And then the OP makes another update 4 days later, and the update reads as follows. I didn't expect the crazy amount of people following this. Here is the long-awaited post. Also, long post. Sorry for the delay. I think I mentioned before, I'm a processor, so it takes me a while to work through my thoughts and feelings on things. This situation and update not be as satisfying as many would have hoped, but here it goes. I met with law enforcement again this past Tuesday. My husband and I drove over early that morning because I was also meeting up with the lawyer I'm working with. Aside from the near constant texts, calls, and emails, I wanted to pursue legal action for a specific issue. Allegedly, the stylist had tried to have my credit card canceled. Apparently, they used the last 4 digits of my card, called the customer service line for the card, and tried to cancel it. I got a call from the fraud department shortly after this person attempted to do this, trying to verify everything to see if I actually wanted to close my account and dissolve my credit line with them. To be clear, the stylist was not successful in their alleged attempt. They couldn't provide the basic information you need for such things, like my actual last name. It's unusual, and they gave a name that was almost similar, date of birth, address, etc. Apparently, they thought they could accomplish this with just my name, phone number, and the last 4 digits of the card number. I didn't cancel the card, but did request a new one for obvious reasons. I had no clue why they would want to cancel my card. To inconvenience me? Yep, That's exactly why, allegedly. When I spoke with the credit card company, they agreed to send over the recording of the person that called, as well as the phone number the call originated from, as long as the request came from law enforcement with a warrant. They gave me a phone number and reference number for the police to reach out to directly. The officer began working on that immediately, so that is in progress. I went to my phone company over the weekend. I had my phone number transferred to an old phone so I could still receive calls and texts there, but got a new phone number for my actual phone. The old phone and phone number has been turned over to the officer assigned to my case. They did go and speak with this person yesterday. Apparently, they are horrified I went to the police and had no idea any of their crazy could be a chargeable offense. According to the officer, there have been no further communications via text or call since their last visit, and I haven't received any other emails. A temporary protection and no contact order has been issued against them until the first court date. I've also reached out to the State Board of Licensing with all of this information and my complaints. All I can say is they are investigating. Outside of that information, I'm limited on any other information I can share since a legal process against this person has officially begun. We are just waiting to see how this all plays out now. It's been a long few weeks. I'm hoping for the best here. I'm already so relieved to no longer be getting calls, texts, or emails constantly. Thank you for all the concern, advice, and good wishes. This was meant to be an outlet for me to vent and process, and I'm so grateful that you have allowed me to do that with the huge amount of support you have given. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I'm glad you are safe, and they have stopped contacting you once they realized police enforcement was involved. Shameful they didn't stop until law enforcement was involved. At least you can sleep easily, knowing they cannot contact you and do not know where you live. Absolute insanity. They attempted to cancel your credit card though. I hope you get the best possible outcome for this situation. I'm so sorry you are going through this. And the OP responded saying, I really appreciate it. It's been a roller coaster for my household for sure. Another commenter says, I'm glad you are getting it sorted and have taken this serious. Hopefully the police have scared them enough to permanently leave you alone. You never know what crazy people will do. And then the OP responds saying, the officer implied that this person was legitimately Pikachu-faced when they showed up, and the lack of further contact indicates they really didn't have a clue that they were breaking the law. Another commenter says, people amaze me with how much crazy they think they can get away with. I'm so glad you are doing everything the right way. And the OP responds saying, my lawyer has been critical in making sure I'm protected legally and physically. I'm starting to think this person was one of those who uses escalation to get their way, or intimidating people into doing what they want them to do. This time, it backfired. And then we didn't hear from the OP in 13 long months. No update in 13 months, and everyone was worried sick on what happened to the OP. But then the OP gave us an update 13 months later, titled Long Overdue Update. I'm unsure how satisfying or inflammatory this will be, but I've received tons of comments, DMs, and overall requests for an update. I've been reluctant to revisit any of this for a few reasons, all selfish. In general, none of what happened over the last year or so was fun. There was a legal process in which I was granted a 1-year RO, restraining order, against the stylist. This process took a while to get to court and be heard with continuations for various reasons, but here is the gist of what happened. The stylist showed up to all the court proceedings, had a variety of allegedly fabricated evidence to show the court that I was the one harassing them. They had supposed screenshots of text from my number, threatening to harm them, calling them names, threatening to show up at their business and burn it down. The issue with this evidence? The phone number the texts were coming from was on a phone that was in possession of the officer on my case. I had already gotten a new phone number by the time these texts were being sent. The officer had a certified readout of the phone's activity while in his position, and no calls or texts were outgoing after I surrendered that phone. There were none. The stylist seemed very surprised by that information. I don't think they even considered that I might get a new phone or number. The stylist implied that I had someone else do it, or that I spoofed it from my new number and tried to demand my new number as part of the discovery of evidence. That was not granted. I did have to have law enforcement do another certified review of my current phone, and to protect us further, my husband's phone as well, showing that I or anyone I was in contact with had not downloaded any spoofing software to use against this person or attempted to contact them. That felt icky, but was necessary and also very validating. They did have a lawyer, but the lawyer seemed very coed. I really believe the representation was not confident in their case, especially with the texts and calls this person was said to have received. The tone, grammar, and language used in those communications were not native to the way I speak or text. I hate text speak and rarely use it, especially with anyone I'm not intimately familiar with. The evidence they presented with the text was riddled with it. I do use slang, bestie, but if I don't know you well, you're going to get my customer service communications. All that to say, whomever was sending those texts were not me. I don't care to speculate about who did send them, but they read like bad cop dramas. Ultimately, the bench trial was in my favor. The stylist was given no contact with a 1-year RO, ordered to pay all my legal fees and a small monetary amount. To date, that has not been settled. On to the aftermath. A few weeks go by and things took a turn. Random notes on my car would pop up when I would go to the grocery store about what a bitch I am and I'll get what's coming to me. Vehicles slowing down in front of our house and throwing eggs, or honking their horn over and over in the middle of the night. I'm not stupid. I know who it is. And now they have my home address with all the RO filings. Thankfully, I also have cameras everywhere on my property. I would call the cops. They'd say they would look into it. It would continue. My tire got slashed when I was at dinner with my husband. The restaurant did not have cameras at an angle that would show us who, but I have a good idea. Their salon location was only 2.5 blocks away. Small towns can be great until everyone and their mama knows where you are and when you're in town. This goes on for months. We make a report for each and every instance and occurrence. Finally, the cops really started looking into it more. We gave them everything we had. The car on our footage was not registered to stylist. When the cops went knocking at the owner's house, they claimed they were paid to go, quote, piss off this bitch by a stylist, but I thought it was a prank situation. They were cited for vandalism and disturbing the peace and were trespassed from our property. Their car was never near our property again after that. Stylist was brought in for violating the RO. I thought it would be over. Was essentially a slap on the wrist. Cycle continues. Stylist finally spends a few nights in jail after the 5th or 6th instance of violation. Then stylist files a lawsuit for defamation of character against me for, get this, $200,000. According to my stylist, my defamatory remarks cost them from clientele and license. I didn't know it, but their license had been suspended. I guess my report to the licensing bureau worked. Stylist claimed I cost their yearly salary of $200,000. What small town stylist makes this? And demanded reparations for defamation, claiming that my RO was granted under false evidence and cost them their reputation and livelihood. I contact my lawyer again and we start our defense. Lawyer does all the lawyer things. I'm advised I can countersue at this point, but I just want everything to be over. The case doesn't see a judge for a while. We go, both sides are heard. Case is dropped without prejudice. At this point, we've had enough. Once the RO is up for renewal, we make a different choice. We moved. We sold our house, traded in our old cars, and dipped. I didn't want this person to ever have access to me or mine again. It has been 5 months in our new home, and things have been exponentially more peaceful, but I'm so pissed off that it came to us moving. I loved our house, our community, and the area we lived in. I'm sorry I hadn't updated. I just really hate thinking about this one time I had a weird ass fucking encounter with my hairstylist that led to a nearly year of hell. So that's it. That's the update. I had time today. It's a new year separate from the crazy, so here it is. And honestly, that's all I'm giving after everything. I just want to forget it. And then the OP makes one more small update in the comments of this post that reads as follows. I saw this pop up on Scaling Stories. I love them on TikTok and couldn't believe people still cared enough to share. Thank you. But there is a moment I failed to mention that my husband said y'all might be interested in. So while the notes, tire slashing, and egging was happening, the stylist found themselves in a bit of a pickle, which is what ultimately helped us get police to act and arrest. The community Facebook page started posting about some nut job was vandalizing cars and houses and harassing people. I guess one of the folks who worked at the counter house / sheriff's office, they're in the same building, kept seeing all the reports I was making about my car, house, and all the other stuff. Like I said, small towns are fun. They were nosy enough to want to gossip about it, but not enough to look into it and see that it was the only one family in the community being victimized by the nut job. The post, of course, had everyone up in arms and claiming they were victimized too, but never reported it because they didn't know it was happening to others. At first, it didn't click that it was my situation that everyone was talking about until it was mentioned that tires were slashed at a popular local restaurant. But you know who clocked it right away and couldn't help themselves from commenting? The stylist. They commented on every post about the psycho targeting people like this, with stuff like, paraphrasing, quote, "You need to stay out of it. You don't know what these people have done to have this happen to them. Maybe they aren't so innocent and deserved it." They also were calling out people who claimed to be a victim too, with stuff like, quote, "You know damn well that's a lie. Nothing happened to you," because, duh, stylist was only targeting me and had to defend themselves. They always commented variations of the same thing on every comment, calling them crazy and a shitty person. Chat. When I say stylist got dog walked in the comments, I'm not exaggerating. It was one of the most validating moments during the worst part of the whole ordeal. People called them vile for trying to defend someone who was clearly crazy and a garbage human being, was flamed for victim blaming, had their business page reported and rate bombed by keyboard warriors because, of course, stylist was commenting on the post using their business profile and was subsequently banned from the page. Their business Facebook had a 1-star rating and eventually disappeared. I stayed out of all of this completely, never revealing I was the person they were defending, just taking never screenshots of the stylist responses for later evidence. The post eventually got removed after I gave all the screenshots of the post to the detective working my case, with them verifying and taking their own screenshots from the official sheriff's office account. And the sheriff had a talk with the court employee about posting stuff they see that comes across their desk. The worker had very proudly began their post with, quote, "I work at the courthouse and this is happening in the community, and we're told under no uncertain terms to refrain from that type of action moving forward." Anyways, this was probably the only genuinely funny thing to happen during the hell I was living through, and I thought I'd share. Thanks again for all the support and well wishes. We are okay now and working to rebuild the happiness we had before in a new place. And that is the last update we have received from the OP, and I don't think we're going to have any more for a long time because I think the OP just wants to forget about this entire horrific ordeal and move on with their lives. Today, I effed up by moving in with psychopaths. I really effed up. First off, I'm a 23-year-old girl. I don't know how relevant that is. So about 2 months ago, I found myself with no money after having to put hundreds of dollars into my poor car over the course of 5 months. Brakes and rotors were replaced, master cylinder replaced, water pump busted and it had to be fixed, serpentine belt, etc. Finally, the head gasket blew and I'd spent all of my savings on my car right when I lost my job. I was working at a bookstore that was due to close on July 4th. I had another job lined up working for the online portion of the store, but my boss wasn't going to bring me on to start packing slash shipping slash listing for another month, and I was truly out of money. A friend from high school, calling her Jamie, had been insisting on me moving out to California to work on her cannabis farm with her for about a year. Offered to pay for my plane ticket, told me I had a room, told me I'd be making $15 an hour full time. It was the best pay I've been offered. I graduated high school but didn't attend college. But I didn't want to do it simply because it was so far away from my comfort zone and everything I valued most. Now, I don't have a bunch of friends. This was the year that I cut all the toxic people out of my life, as far as I could tell before this particular incident. But my friends that I do have are incredibly important to me and have dragged me out of some of the darkest moments of my life. I knew that I couldn't prioritize my friends in this situation. It was officially about saving my own ass. Well, having absolutely no money, I started to feel like a burden to my mother, whom I've been living with for a year, to get back on my feet. It was working just fine. I saved up a good amount of money and finally bought a car. But you know what ended up happening with the car. I was supposed to save up and get an apartment by August, but my car is where all of my money went. In addition to gas, food, and necessities, with the occasional small weed purchase, maybe $20 once a month. Basically, I found myself feeling like moving out of here was the best option. Good money, awesome friend that I had made a lot of cool memories with in high school, etc. It started to sound more and more attractive the more I thought about it. I had a long talk with her, and she booked me a ticket. Not before I verified that our operation was legal, that I'd have my own room / private space, that I'd have a job, and that I'd like her husband. She verified all these things with confidence, and I flew out. This was 3 weeks ago. I'd like to point out before this next part that I am a skeptic by design, and I made damn sure I was certain it was a good idea before coming out. She and I talked every day until I flew out, and I never would have gathered that anything was out of the ordinary. Well, the first night, I learned that none of the above would be true. This friend of mine somehow managed to lose her mind over the last 3 years. It's been since she moved to California. First off, she's married to a psychotic ex-homeless person that all call Jack. She just met this guy on the beach and fell in love. Got married pretty much instantly. I never would have pinned her as that sort of girl, but I quickly learned that she'd changed. I couldn't stand her husband from the get-go, as he was clearly on some whole other level of crazy. He interrupts every 3 seconds because he only likes to listen to himself talk. He's obsessed with the Illuminati and a bunch of other conspiracies. He's incredibly condescending and pretentious about his beliefs. I learned all of it on the second day. He's incredibly disrespectful and oblivious to the way his words and actions affect others. Oh, and he's a crybaby about everything. Still, I sucked it up. I'd already flown out here, and I was already stuck. Second, I have no room or private space. My bedroom is a mattress pad on the floor in the corner of the kitchen. I still sucked it up because I'm not about to be ungrateful about where I'm sleeping, but then I discovered that, lo and behold, they have 2 kittens, and the litter box is in the kitchen about 10 feet away from my bed. Still, didn't complain because, again, I'm stuck out here anyway. Third, I found out on day 2 that her husband is growing an insane amount of mushrooms. Illegal. Not cool. Still didn't care because I figured they weren't under any pressure from the law. Well, that isn't true either, because I then found out that not only is Jamie on parole, but her parole officer organized a raid of their house just a week before I flew out, when my ticket was already paid for. They found nothing because all of their illegal things are located elsewhere in the vicinity, but apparently that shit can happen at any time. Fourth, no cell service here, so no way to call or text my friends and family that I'm really close to, unless they had iPhones, and I was able to catch a Wi-Fi signal on the phone, which is rare. I had to reactivate my Facebook. I despise Facebook, just to keep in touch with my loved ones because they do have a weak Wi-Fi signal here, but that was the least of my worries. Obviously, I didn't consider that too awful until I realized how bad things would be out here. Fifth, their plants are illegal. She told me that in this particular area, you can have X amount of plants, She's got a lot more than that. I had no idea until she saw me taking a picture to send my close friends. She then acted like she told me all along that this was an illegal operation. I still have the text to verify that this is not the case, but I didn't want to throw that in her face because I'd realized by now that nothing about this is stable. I'll stop numbering my points now. We got in a fight over the picture I took that night. She went into full crazy mode, told me that she couldn't believe I would be so stupid, how she felt like having me out here was a mistake because of my terrible judgment, and how fucked up I was for thinking that was okay. It was my understanding that the law was not being broken. Why else would I travel across the country to live with somebody? Certainly not to be a part of something insanely illegal, but I digress. It escalated. I tried to keep a level head and explain how I've been trying to wrap my mind around this entire situation and that I was told the opposite of just about everything that was going on here. Did I mention her kittens have been shitting and pissing in my clothes, bed, and blankets since day one? She told me I was ungrateful and that they had a teepee on their property that I was going to have to go live in because I was interfering with their marriage. I left out that part about Jamie making one comment to Jack that upset him so much he threw a huge glass plate at her that then shattered all over the porch. They fought constantly to the point that I would be inside crying and feeling sorry for myself for making such a horrible decision to come out here. I should point out I got a job my third day here, and it worked 4 days when this fight occurred. At one point in the fight, Jamie told me she was taking me to the airport to send me home and make me pack all my things, get dressed, and walk out the door. In that period of time, I emailed my boss to tell her that I wouldn't be able to work for them anymore because I was being sent back home, and I didn't want them to not have someone to work for me in the morning. By the time Jamie changed her mind, I emailed my boss to let her know, JK, my roommate's just crazy, paraphrasing, and I lost my job based on my unreliable living situation. So she told me I had to go live in this teepee. No electricity, no water, bathroom, kitchen area, or anything. A glorified tent. The only thing about it that's livable is that there's a bed inside, but it gets freezing here at night and hot as fuck during the day, with no way to contact anyone, in the middle of the woods in a town where S-word offenders and R-wordists are apparently everywhere. I wasn't told this either. And drugged out bums roam through the woods constantly. She painted it as a perfect little place for me. It broke my heart because, well, I didn't move all the way out here to live off the grid in a tent in the woods. I've pretty much reached a point where I've got to head back to my hometown. My boss has my paycheck waiting for me up at my old work, which is about $150. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to discuss this with Jamie and Jack that won't end in an absolute disaster. After all, they'd be the ones driving me all the way back to San Francisco, like 2 hours away, to fly home. So I'd have to end this on good terms, which is extremely difficult when you're dealing with people that are not even remotely stable. Everything here is an argument or a test, and so many laws are being broken. I've been deprived of so many things. I haven't eaten in 3 days because I just haven't felt even a little bit of an appetite. You'd think I'd be sitting here stoned all the time since I'm in California, but unfortunately, nah. I can't find weed to save my life, and their plants haven't fully matured. There's a lot of things that I left out, but wow, what a disaster. I guess the takeaway from this is that I'm an idiot, and I should have never assumed somebody would be in the same way they were 3 years prior. I don't have any idea of what's happened in the last 3 years, but she's a different human being altogether. Almost like she hit her head really hard on something and developed a new bizarre and terrifying personality. I couldn't have predicted this if I were getting paid to. I've kept my parents posted about this from the beginning, but I've been ashamed. I've only told 2 close friends about all this because I feel like they're the only ones that won't think I'm a complete dumbass for all of this, having known Jamie in the past. I made a lot of bold statements about how well I was going to do out here and how excited I was to make good money and set my life up pretty sweet-like. I was really looking forward to this, and every single day has been a nightmare in its own special way. I'm just hoping I can make it out of here before the law shows up and tears them open, or before they do something awful to me. I don't trust these people. I'm uncomfortable every minute I'm around them. If they try to move me into this teepee before I can afford my plane ticket, I'll deal with it, but I fear for my life and my sanity living in that teepee. Even if I needed one of them for something, it's a pretty long way back to the house, and they're literally attempting to up and banish me. How they expect me to find another job is beyond me. I'm willing to work, but I'm miles away from town. I had a bike. I wanted to leave this part out, but they gave me a bike and it ended up being a stolen bike that belonged to my coworker. Oh my God. Yeah, it's a whole other ordeal I don't like going into because this is long enough. But the bike has been returned and I now have no transportation except for Jamie. Too bad she can't drive me anywhere if I don't even have the means to ask for a ride. And she works an unpredictable schedule. I know this was really long, but if you do read it, please don't throw me into the flames. This has been incredibly devastating for me and just an all-around terrifying experience, and I just want to go home. I know I fucked up. I'm trying to make it right. And I mean, before we move on, I just have to give some of my thoughts because I'm trying to process all of this because it's so wild. But the OP moved out to California because she thought she'd have a good opportunity to get a job and all that, legal, which is great. But now she's here. She lost her job that she had there. She has no way to get back to society without asking an unstable, crazy person. And also, these crazy people's operation could be shut down at any moment, which would most likely mean the OP gets arrested as well for being affiliated. And oh my God, and she can't get back to society, period. And she has no money left. She has nothing. And now she's stuck with bad Wi-Fi and a phone and living in a teepee. This is a bad situation, and I'm very worried for the OP, but let's continue because I want to see where this goes. The OP makes an edit saying, "Oh my God, guys, I am so sorry. I have not had any access to the internet since I posted this, except when I've been with my roommates, and I haven't been able to come back to this. I'm reading my responses now. I'm so sorry for freaking guys out. I didn't expect anyone to actually read this. Also, thank you so much for the gold. You didn't have to do that, but that was really sweet of you. Thank you. Edit 2, I'm overwhelmed right now. I'm so sorry. This entire experience has been extremely difficult for me, and I've never been good at articulating without going into a million paragraphs. Just know that I'm fine right now. I'm not at the TP. I'm supposed to be moving to the TP this week, and I can tell that it's coming up. But just know that for right now, I'm still at the house because Jamie has been working all week. Now, I've been using Reddit for 3 years, and this is the first time I've truly felt the community here. I've never seen this many messages in my inbox, and I don't even know how to begin. But I'm going to try to respond to everyone. I cannot stress enough how much it means to me that so many people are willing to talk to me or help me. I can't put this into words. I truly do not know what to say. Thank you all of you. Fuck. I'll be spending the entire day in town today at a coffee shop where I get free Wi-Fi. The internet at the house comes and goes and is extremely inefficient for loading page after page. I'll be in town until much later this afternoon. I'm having them drop me off to find a job, which I will be doing if I get around to reading and responding to everyone. Thank you again, and I'm sorry for vanishing. I will not do that again now that I know people actually saw this and give a shit. I'm sorry. Edit 3. I should also point out that I spoke to my friend back in St. Louis, my mother's old neighbor that I used to do yard work for and drink wine / watch shitty horror movies with. She's an awesome woman. She told me that she has a room for me back in St. Louis. I've just got to fly back out there. I'm picking up the money that I made for the brief stint at the pizza place and seeing if I can afford a plane ticket. If not, my dad said he could possibly help me out. I might take one of you guys up on a ride to the airport, but not if I don't have something to give you in return. So I'm going to work on that. Also, this is definitely not fiction. I'll post some proof when I get back to town and have Wi-Fi on my phone as well as my computer. And then the OP posts some proof saying this is really the best I can do without giving away myself or location away. And she posts 2 photos, one of the room and one of the broken plate. And the room photo, you can just see the pretty rough living conditions she's living in on a mattress on a floor. in the kitchen. Yeah, just looks pretty rough. And like the OP said, her clothes have been getting pissed on and shitted on by the kittens, which is horrible. So I'm sure she doesn't have a lot that's clean. And the OP is just obviously in a very bad position. In the second photo of the plate, it is just plate shards on the ground with a paper behind it that has the writing of signs of a broken home. And yeah, wow, that's some proof for us. And let's continue. And oh shoot, there is actually a third photo the OP included that says something Jack gave me on my second day here. And she posts a photo of a DVD, I think, of the GMO conspiracies he's really into, which is kind of funny. It says the GMO trilogy, why genetically modified organisms threaten your health, the environment, and future generations. So that is just a kind of conspiracy DVD. And I think that's kind of a funny thing that he gave to her on the second day there. And she also says, my fingers are purple and gross looking because Jamie had me dye her hair purple the night before and didn't buy any gloves. I'm not seriously lacking in blood circulation. And something I didn't add previously was that the OP said that Jamie, the husband or whatever, was super into like GMO conspiracies and that sort of stuff. And so that's why he gave her that DVD. But let's continue. The OP makes an update a few days later saying, if you're around TIFU last Tuesday, you might have come across my original Today I Fucked Up post about moving in with a friend from high school that turned out to be nuts plus married to someone who's also nuts. Hardcore conspiracy theorists, Illuminati, anti-GMO, all that bullshit, all peppered on top of a terrible living situation in a toxic marriage altogether. That's about as detailed as I'm going to get about that aspect of it in this post, and I'd rather not make this post as long. So please refer to the previous post before asking any questions. Just know that I made my original post when I thought I'd completely run out of options, and I went into a terrible downward spiral. There was a 24-hour period where I couldn't come back to this account. This is a throwaway for obvious reasons, and I just expected my post to have been buried during that time frame. Well, I'm an idiot because I logged in to find hundreds and comments and messages from people that actually took the time to read my story. People offering me anything from advice to bus tickets to places to stay. People from all over the country, especially the dozens of fantastic California locals that proved to me that I've been just associating with the wrong people. I still can't find the words to adequately thank those of you that came forward and wanted to help me out. Through a lot of people suggested I start a GoFundMe for myself so I could get home, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't think of a number that would have made sense to me to not make me feel like I look selfish. After all, it didn't write that post for profit. I wrote it because I was going through the toughest experience of my life and I dreaded even waking up in the morning. I just needed someone to talk to. I gained plenty of people to talk to, and you are all insanely awesome. That being said, there were two people in particular that came in clutch and truly saved my ass. The first Redditor I was comfortable talking to in depth about the situation was a software engineer living in the Bay Area who I will refer to as AI, seeing as he was extremely lovable. He doesn't even use Reddit much, but he saw my story and he wanted to help. He offered to pick me up and allow me to stay with him, as well as any other help I'd need. This blew my mind because this man lived 2.5 hours away and insisted on helping me anyway, just because he's a wonderful human being. While discussing an escape plan with AI, I've been talking with another Redditor that I'll call Lee. I'll start by saying that he wishes to remain completely anonymous, so I'll leave out his profession and any other specifics. Just know that this man is also truly wonderful. His original message stated that he wanted to buy me a plane ticket. Obviously, I was resistant to just about every Redditor that offered me help in the beginning because I've always been insecure when asking for help. But both Lee and AI separately calmed my nerves and insisted in helping me out of that terrible situation regardless of my doubts. I agreed to let Lee buy me a plane ticket, and AI and I decided we would arrange the kidnapping for 2:30 in the morning on Saturday, after Jamie and Jack went to sleep. Sadly, there was no plausible way to meet any other way without my roommates finding out what was going on. I didn't tell them a thing. Granted, they hadn't bought the TP situation back up in a couple days, but I knew it was coming, and I knew they wouldn't react favorably to me leaving. When Friday rolled around, I knew it was my last day, so I washed every article of clothing I'd brought with me, even if it was already clean, just to get the essence of that house out of it. There was a constant funk in the air. It didn't appear unusual to Jack or Jamie because it just looked like I was doing laundry. And plus, they ended up leaving in the early afternoon, which made it much easier for me to scan the house for anything I'd left behind. They ended up staying out much later than anticipated. I was starting to panic when it got to be around 11 p.m., but then they finally pulled up. I was sitting outside of my laptop when Jamie walked behind me and went inside the house. Jack then came up and told me he'd spent the afternoon cleaning out the TP, but that they'd brought me a box of bug bombs, which I'd be responsible for administrating before cleaning the spiders out of the TP myself. I just smiled and nodded along, knowing I was leaving anyway. At the end of his speech, he said, "By the way, Jamie paid like $7 for these, so if you want to reimburse her," then went inside. I had my $80 or so left over for my only paycheck after giving her gas money, and part of that was a few single bills. I asked her if $6 would be okay. Her response was, "Well, I was thinking more like 100, for half your ticket out here." It was her plan to take all of my check and have me move out to live in a tent with no money the next day. Nope, I lied and told her that I had a payment due that I hadn't paid yet and that I was sorry. The reality being that the money was all I had to make it once I arrived back in St. Louis. She believed me, although visibly frustrated, and went to sleep. AI arrived on time in the most expensive car I have now ever set foot inside of my life. It was surreal. We got my suitcase and bag into the car in about 15 seconds and took off without a single issue. It couldn't have been more perfectly timed, and AI was extremely punctual, considering the confusing location of the house. I spent the weekend in his beautiful condo and got to meet his roommates. Two super cool women who, with AI, were extremely polite and hospitable to me, considering I was clearly doing far worse than them in every possible category. Just excellent people all around. They made the bizarre nature of my situation much more palatable with their kindness. Plus, they had two kittens that didn't use my sleeping area as a litter box, which is always a plus. And one of them had thumbs, and the OP posts a picture of the cat with thumbs. What a cutie. Oh, that's cute. And then the OP says, "When I wasn't busy wandering around their cool little city and hanging out with those guys at their condo, I was talking to Lee, the Redditor that paid for my plane ticket." Lee is something to behold as well, because you would not even believe the incredible emails he sent me. This man doesn't even know me, and he took the time to truly speak to me and convey his faith in me. I swear that this man breathed new life into my previously shot self-esteem and warmed my heart. He made sure that if at any point in time I needed any sort of assistance, that he was always on my standby. And not only that, but he spoke with such sincerity and depth that every email had me in tears. What are the odds that the two Redditors I'd end up connecting with would end up being two of the most selfless and beautiful people I've ever met? I'm so grateful that one website that I've just used for entertainment all these years has connected me to these two complete strangers and flipped my perspective in humanity. If it weren't for Lee and AI, I wouldn't be sitting here on a comfortable bed in my own room in St. Louis, writing a happy Reddit post today. I'm living with an old neighbor, as I mentioned in an update in my last post. She's awesome, and we've known each other for years. She's been aware of this entire situation as it's happened and is letting me stay as long as it takes to get back on my feet. Needless to say, I'm already working on that. I don't have a car anymore, unfortunately, but I do have a bike out here and a lot more options for work. It shouldn't take me long for me to pull myself together, especially not with the help that my two new friends provided. I wish that I could send both of them gigantic edible arrangement bouquets, but I might have to settle for postcards for now. Thank you to everyone that cared about my story. Thank you to everyone that wanted to help. And all of you that were absolutely ready and willing to donate money, shelter, rides, etc., to my cause just because you're good people. Thank you, especially to AI and Lee. I hate not being able to use your real names, for going above and beyond and completely out of your way to ensure my safe passage back to my hometown. I truly hope that I'll be able to return the favor someday. Lee pointed out that he wanted me to return the favor by channeling my voice into writing one day and getting a journal. My new roommate has since gifted me with this, and it is a leather-bound journal, super awesome. And then the OP says, here is a note from me saying, thank you, Reddit, by Karma, 292. Listen to Karma, by Massive Attack, or literally anything by those guys. It's insanely good music, but hey. And then the OP says, I guess that's all I wanted to say. That Reddit really can be an incredible community when it comes right down to it. And I'm living proof that the people on this website are capable of incredible things. I am so grateful to this website to stumble upon my new friends that helped me get home. So grateful to stumble upon for originally helping me stumble upon Reddit in 2011. Praise. I love you, Redditors, and I love you, Lee and AI. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, what were the craziest reaction to you moving out in the dead of night? I hope they were pissed. And the OP responds saying, I blocked Jamie on all social medias and from my iPhone the night I left. There has been zero contact, surprisingly enough. Someone else says, Jesus, it sounds like she was lucky to escape unscathed. Thank God for Reddit. Someone else says, my blood went cold when Jamie asked OP for $100. She had already caused the loss of her job. Now she was going to take her cash and send her outside. Someone else says, so happy she got out. While reading, I was ready to Venmo what I could afford if she hadn't left yet. I'm also so grateful to the people who did help her. And I hope what they did is being paid back and good things happening for them as well. And then someone else says, I wonder what happened to Jamie and Jack after she left. And yeah, I think this is one of the best case scenarios. I mean, two Redditors helped her out. Two Redditors that weren't creeps, by the way. I mean, I would have been very scared if I was the OP that they are weirdos that are going to abduct me as well or something like that. But the OP is so lucky here. I mean, the OP was completely stranded in the middle of the California woods with no money, no contact, no transportation, no nothing. They could have easily been murdered out there, kidnapped, or God knows what worse. Seriously, like if Jack and Jamie took her phone, she would have been done. There's no way she could have contacted the outside world without walking miles through the woods, through apparently drug addict infested woods. And that could have been a very bad situation. I mean, honestly. And we saw at the end there when Jack or Jamie asked for $100, that would have left the OP completely cashless with no money. And I'm sure if the OP didn't pay up, they would have gotten mad and done God knows what. But this is seriously such a scary situation. And the OP is just so lucky that they had Wi-Fi and made the post, and the post got as much notoriety as it did, or else the OP could have been in a horrific scenario. But I'm glad that Reddit clutched up, and those two people, you know, were just kind strangers that did a good deed and helped the OP out, because, yeah, the OP was in a bad situation, but at least this one had a good ending. My husband accused me of murder out of the blue. How do I salvage this? Originally posted to r/relationship advice, and the post reads as follows. This is long and ridiculous. Sorry. My 30 female husband, Luke, who's 33 male, had a sister, Laura, 29 female. We were all close and saw each other 2 to 3 times a month, along with their parents. Almost 6 months ago, Laura fell down the stairs at their family home and died. It was a freak accident. There's a window on the half landing, and she hit her head on the sill. I was the last person to see her. I was there for less than 10 minutes, and she was in her pajamas making coffee. I didn't even stay for a drink, and I struggle with how such a brief and meaningless interaction could have been our last. She deserved so much more. My husband and I have only been married for a year, but we've been together for 4 and have known each other for 20 plus. When Laura's parents found her, they called my husband straight away and we rushed over. We faced the whole thing as a family. In the days after, Luke started quizzing me. Exactly what we talked about, what she was wearing, where we were standing, etc. It progressed to saying I was providing conflicting information on tiny details he was deliberately misunderstanding, and accusing me of withholding information because I couldn't tell him things like what pajamas she was wearing. This escalated quickly, but lasted for less than a week. As I lost my cool and made it clear that I was done answering questions, he didn't bring it up again, and I wrote it off as a grief quirk. His behavior was generally that of a normal, grieving person. Last Friday, he outright accused me of murdering her in front of his parents, out of the blue. We were all stunned. There was an inquest which recently concluded, and there was never any doubt the verdict would be an accidental death. He said it was completely obvious, and he couldn't believe that no one else could see it. He claims I went through his phone and found messages with Laura. I have absolutely no idea what message he's talking about. I have never looked at his phone, and that I went over to confront her and things got out of hand, and I pushed her down the stairs. By the end, he was shouting about going to the police and getting the inquest overturned, and how I wasn't going to get away with it. Let me be clear. Laura and I had a great relationship. We all did. I have no idea where this has come from, other than these messages I haven't seen, and even then, I don't think there's anything I could ever see on someone's phone that would drive me to murder. It's just ridiculous. He's been with his parents since this happened and will not talk to me at all. I've had some contact with his mom, but she's not being very communicative. The last I heard, she didn't know what messages he was referring to either. I am still completely stunned, and I have no idea how to proceed. I made a commitment to be there for him always, and I understand that grief can manifest in some strange ways. But part of me feels like my love for him died the second he called me a murderer, and I don't know how we could possibly work through this. I also really don't want to be thought of in this way, and I have no idea if he has said anything to people we know. I obviously haven't. A brain tumor or psychotic break has crossed my mind, and I suggested it to his mother, and she said she'll talk to him. Other than the questions before, he hasn't been acting odd. Obviously, he's been grieving, but he seemed sane and sensible other than that. I feel like I'm going mad. Does anyone have any advice at all? And now let's get into some of the top comments on this post. Someone says, "Fuck no. You don't salvage this. You get a lawyer and get the F out." Best case scenario, he has just admitted to sending messages with his sister that he thinks would make you angry enough to kill her over them. I have some ideas about what those might be, and they are all bad. How did the parents react when he did this? And then the OP responded saying, when he first laid out the accusation at his parents' house, both his mother and I just kept asking him about the messages, and all he would say was that I know exactly what messages he was talking about. She was as stunned as me, and his father just said he didn't understand what he was talking about. He's a man of few words, but there was plenty of head shaking. The whole thing was surreal. No one knew how to react. I honestly don't know what kind of lawyer I would even speak to about this. From what I'm aware, the coroner's decision can't be appealed and the police can't launch an investigation into an accidental death. I don't think I'm quite ready for divorce. We haven't spoken since his accusation, and I walked out about 5 minutes after he threw it out, and I have no idea what his frame of mind is. Someone else comments saying, you need to get a lawyer to protect yourself in case he does go to the police. I'd write down everything that you can remember that happened that day and keep it just in case. He may be having a psychotic break. As stated, don't talk to him or his immediate family or friends without someone present, or preferably by text or email. Save everything. You need to take his accusation seriously and cover your ass. And the OP responded saying, I was interviewed by the coroner's office after her death, as I was the last person to see her. She died about 3 hours after I saw her, and I'd been to the supermarket and was home by that point. It's all verifiable and was a recorded interview. I haven't spoken to anyone but his mother, and that's only been over messages. She's never been a big texter, but she has seemed very cagey over the past few days. I don't know if this means she's seen the messages. I've asked and been ignored. Someone else responds to that thread saying, I think they mean record everything you remember about the day your soon-to-be ex accused you of murder. And the OP responds saying, I'm feeling so freaked out at the idea that he came up with this almost immediately after her death and has either been sitting on it or planning his confrontation. That I'm basically trying to dissect the past 6 months. Maybe it's time I start writing things down. Right until it happened, things felt very normal. Obviously, her death has been felt deeply by all of us, and things aren't anything like they were, but there have been no signs of anything like this, even on the day. And then a lot of commenters were asking the OP to get the messages, and the OP says, I'm absolutely desperate to see the messages, because I'm right there with you guys on the sheer wackiness of what they have to contain. It hadn't occurred to me that they might not exist. I've never known him to lie, but I do think a mental health issue is a real possibility. His relationship with his sister didn't seem odd, and I've never been interested in his phone, but he's never been defensive about it either. So I think you might be right. If I had such incriminating messages, I'd probably worry about them before now. And then someone recommends the OP to find an old iPad to use to access them, and the OP makes an update saying, I have his iCloud password. It has a backup from yesterday. I have no idea how to turn this into something I can actually use. It doesn't have a messages folder or any signs of how to use it for anything other than restoring a whole phone, which I don't want to do. Does anyone know how to actually get the messages from this? Sorry to throw a tech support request in. I can't believe I didn't think of this. Huge thanks to the person who suggested it. And then the OP makes another post about a day later titled, Can I force my husband to get a mental health assessment, and do I risk being arrested/prosecuted? We are in England. And the post reads as follows. I'm in a bizarre and complex situation with my husband. I have broken the law, and I feel I have no choice but to do so again for my safety. I don't know what type of solicitor I need or what the next steps should look like. We are in England, and I'll try not to editorialize too much. My husband's sister died suddenly at the start of the year. Her death was an accident, and there was no suggestion to the contrary. The inquest was recently concluded, and a verdict of accidental death returned. I was the last person to see her, but her time of death, which was almost immediate due to her injury, was confirmed to be hours after I left the house. All of this was verified at the time. In the immediate aftermath, my husband behaved strangely and kept trying to trip up my story of the last time we saw each other, which was a brief interaction. Last week, months after this was first and last mentioned, he outright accused me of murder in front of his parents. He says I saw his messages with his sister and confronted her, and that he's going to have the coroner decision overturned and have the police investigate. I haven't seen or heard from him since today. I posted for advice on Reddit. I'm pretty desperate at this point, and it has spooked me, quite reasonably I think, but also led me to committing a crime and planning another. My husband's iCloud credentials were saved on an old iPad in his office, and I downloaded his backup last night. I have read all of his messages with his sister, and there is absolutely nothing like he describes. I understand this is illegal, and I'm concerned about the possible ramifications. I'm also waiting for a call back from a locksmith to change the locks on the home we own together, which I believe is also against the law. So this leads to my actual questions. I feel justified in what I've done for my safety, but is there a degree of pragmatism under the law for these issues because of the situation, or am I shooting myself in the foot? I am resigned to the fact my relationship is over. But his parents don't seem to be taking this seriously, and they're icing me out. I believe this is a serious mental health issue, which may put people, namely me, at risk. Can I do anything about this when all I have is the fact I'm being accused of murder? I feel he needs to be detained, and this should be investigated as a full-blown psychotic break. Sorry, this is all a bit mental. In addition, what type of solicitor do I need? My understanding is that a coroner decision can't be appealed, is that correct? Are his accusations going to go anywhere? Can I protect myself from this or stop him from escalating to telling others? We live in our hometown and everyone knows everyone. This could follow me forever, and it's either a lie or a delusion. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. And then, now let's get into some of the top comments. Some people suggest that the OP can't lock out her husband or force him to get a psych evaluation. And the OP then says, "Thank you so much for your response. Locking each other out doesn't sound like a pattern I want to get into, but I think I'll go ahead and change them once on the basis that it isn't, quote, you did this so you have to leave the house, and also you'll be prosecuted levels of seriousness. In terms of him being deemed to lack capacity, is there any way I can trigger the process that you know of? Is something like this sufficient for the Mental Health Act to kick in? I've been Googling and, quote, you can be detained if professionals think your mental health puts you or others at risk and you need to be in a hospital. Seems very vague. Obviously, I'm biased, but accusing someone of murder and screaming about how they aren't going to be getting away with it feels like risky behavior. Does he need to have made explicit threats, or is there a clear bar to meet? Sorry for asking so many questions." And then another commenter says, "You are jumping ahead of yourself and playing out situations that have not occurred. If your husband reports you to the police for assessing his data and you are subsequently arrested or taken in for questioning, then obtain the services of a criminal solicitor for advice. With respect of changing locks / ending your marriage, seek a solicitor that deals with family law / divorce. If you feel that you are at risk from your husband, talk to a domestic abuse helpline. If you feel you are at immediate risk of harm, then call the police. If you think your husband is mentally ill and presents a risk to himself or others, call the police." And then the OP responds saying, "I don't think that's a fair assessment. Being accused of arguably the most serious crime to exist has most definitely occurred. My understanding of the law is that something is illegal whether you are reported to the police or not. Those messages are evidence as far as I'm concerned that his accusations are false. They were apparently the trigger to me literally murdering someone I was extremely close to. I have illegally accessed them, and I don't think it's unreasonable to inquire as to the potential impact of that. I'm fully aware that I need a solicitor, but as you're probably aware, today is Sunday. I don't know if I need to seek someone out based on a divorce, which honestly, if this is a mental health issue, is not going to be something I go for, or a criminal solicitor, or someone who deals with the Mental Health Act, as my absolute priority preference is getting him assessed. My only exposure to the legal system in my entire life was through the inquest, and that is obviously completely different to any of this. I'm not educated in this area." And then another commenter says, "It's sad and slightly suspicious that OP is jumping ahead to mental health assessments to defend themselves from accusations of murder when their husband is clearly going through some serious issues, coping with the death of his sister." And the OP responds saying, "What else can I do? He has blocked me everywhere. And we went from a normal couple dealing with the new normal 6 months after the death of his sister to me being accused of murder over a family dinner because of messages which clearly don't exist. And it's been 9 days and I've heard nothing since. Can I remind you that the inquest was held and concluded? I dropped off some Tupperware, grabbed an umbrella I'd left behind the previous week, went to a big Tesco, then went home and called my mom. I was already home by the time she died, and my whereabouts were extremely easy to verify because my husband was home all day. It's obvious that he's going through some serious issues coping with the death of his sister. That is the exact point of all of this." And then the OP makes another post a few days later titled, "Update. My husband has accused me of murder. out of the blue. How do I salvage this? And then the post reads as follows. Firstly, thank you for those who helped me to get to my husband's iCloud backups through an old iPad. I wasn't expecting much from Reddit, but I got valuable practical advice before my post was locked, and I appreciate it. There were no crazy or even suspicious messages. I've searched for over 100 terms and scrolled back over years. I saw a side of them both I wasn't expecting, but nothing that explains the claim I murdered Laura over their chats. Nothing to suggest he was cheating. Absolutely nothing to suggest sibling love, if you get what I mean. I repeat, no sibling love. No weird gaps where deleted conversations or a switch to another app would fit. Just siblings making plans, sending memes, and gossiping. They said unexpectedly horrible stuff about a few people, but not me. It was a sort of relief, but it raised more questions than it answered. I sought legal advice, also from Reddit, after posting here. Turns out my options are divorce him or sit down. I contacted my community mental health team, who said they'd reach out, but made it clear it wasn't urgent. I then called his mom and said that if I didn't hear from him by this weekend, I would get a solicitor and ask for a mental health assessment as part of the divorce. In response, he made a ridiculous post to Facebook, which neither of us have used in years, and everything blew up. I'm going to try to keep this succinct. On Friday night, he made a long accusation on Facebook with new information. He said he'd been planning to leave me for months with his sister's support, and I found the messages and murdered her. The coroner has reopened the case and the police are preparing to arrest me, and he needs to make sure people know before the trial stops him talking about it. It was well written and seemed vaguely plausible. He messaged people links so it gave some attention. We live in our hometown and have a large circle of friends because we've been here all our lives. People I haven't spoken to since high school were reaching out to me asking what the fuck was going on. It was madness. In response, I posted the export of his entire conversation history with Laura, also to Facebook, when I finally got back in. I linked to the chat along with a post explaining my side and nothing that I changed my ex's iCloud and Apple passwords, and that if he wanted them back, he should comment on my post and update his own, admitting that he was lying. He eventually did. When I started getting messages about his post, I panicked, and changing his passwords seemed important to preserve everything because he'd know I had access. When I spoke to him the next morning, it's clear he's not having a mental episode at all, but is claiming one because he's been caught in a big lie. As soon as he was outed, he called me, clearly drunk, begging and promising to explain everything if I deleted my post. I hung up and told him to call back the next day. He did, after many missed calls and texts, and he tried to bargain and guilt trip me with his mental health until it was clear the wrong people had seen this conversation. It's hard to describe, but it seemed fake. It was too well rehearsed, and then this morning, when it was clear he was getting nowhere, he blocked me. Begging for mercy and reciting facts about mental disorders doesn't align with someone in crisis with a sincere belief that someone murdered their sibling. The question of why he did all this remains unanswered, and he will not be getting his passwords until it is. The legal advice subreddit said this stuff is technically illegal, but it's beneath a court to take action. So I'm going to count on that because I felt like I had no other choice at the time, and now I don't see any other way to get answers from him. I am desperate, and it's all I've got. So there we are. The relationship I have believed was my destiny since I was a teenager has boiled down to a petty, convoluted, and vindictive bullshit played out on social media for reasons still unknown. My hope for a brain tumor is fading, and clearly tomorrow morning is going to be when I lawyer up and stop posting about this. I am mortified. I have no idea whether some people might believe him, and I still don't know why this all happened in the first place. Sorry I don't have a happier update, and thanks once again to everyone who offered advice. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, "Wow, OP, I'm so sorry. This is not the update I expected because it's even more bizarre. Can you provide more info on how people reacted and why he confessed to lying? without explaining why. It was obvious his post was fake. Is that it? If he wanted a divorce, this is the dumbest way to ever go about it. I just can't understand his thinking at all. Again, I'm so sorry. What a nightmare for you. And then the OP responds to that saying, he didn't react at all. He'd called me tens of times at that point, and we'd had 5 conversations on the phone about it. He was laser focused on me deleting the chat log from the get-go. But when I made it clear that posting that comment and editing his original Facebook post was the only way to progress the conversation at all, he finally did. Then he went silent publicly, as far as I can see, but continued begging me behind the scenes. Wow, this is wildly weird. And then someone else comments saying, what on earth is in those chats that he's so desperate to keep people from seeing? And that would conceivably lead you to kill someone? Is there any chance they're using some kind of code or something? And the OP responds saying, I think it was the fact that it proved his story false. Alongside the way they spoke about some people, it was really damaging stuff, and I can see why he panicked. I hated to do it to him, but I really couldn't think of anything else because so many people had questions. Someone else says, sounds like he's staging a mental issue to get rid of you or create a reason he's not responsible. Cheating? Money missing from work? Personal or family? And the OP responds saying, this is exactly how it comes across. He kept saying how various behaviors he's shown over the years fit anxiety and depression. They don't. And that his vulnerability has led to a complex grief-related breakdown. He is not particularly informed on mental health issues, so I don't understand how he went from a drunken shambles to that level of insight overnight, when he had apparently been in active crisis, posting horrible lies on Facebook less than 2 hours before calling me initially. You make an interesting point about finances. That could be something weird, but definitely not to the extent that it explains any of this. When Laura died, she had a loan and credit account that no one knew about. The total on them was less than £3,000. And I don't know what happened because they weren't mentioned much after they came up initially, but everyone was a bit surprised. She lived for the weekend and going away with the girls, so it wasn't hugely suspicious, and it was confirmed there were no unusual transactions in her account, but it was odd. She was saving to move out, so she was pretty open about her finances, generally because she was excited about her savings goals. I don't think it points to anything, but I'm at a point where anything could be relevant because it's all such a mess. And then the OP makes an update, posted 6 days later, and the update reads as follows. Hi everyone, me again. Both times I've posted here, it has paid off hugely in terms of helping unravel this mess. So I hope it's third time lucky. For the past few weeks, I've been trying to figure out why my husband suddenly accused me of murdering his sister, who died in an accident at home 6 months ago. It still feels as ridiculous now as it did then. When Laura died, we found out she had about £3,000 in hidden debt. It was odd because she was pretty open about her finances, but it wasn't out of character for her to overspend, so I hadn't really thought about it since. A comment on my last post prompted me to look more closely at money stuff, and a message to my husband from Laura asking about a payment stuck out. I'd initially assumed it was about a car issue she'd had a few weeks before she died, but Luke definitely paid at the garage when they picked it up, because we talked about it after she dropped him home. It didn't occur to me when I first looked through. The messages supposedly proved I was a murderer, so I've been looking for something scandalous. The message about payments was the only thing I had at that point, and I had no idea what it meant, so I took a chance. I told his mother I knew about the money, and that if he didn't get in touch with me that day, I would make sure everybody else did too. He called me straight away and asked me over to his parents' house to talk. He looked dreadful, and the first thing he asked me was whether I was happy now all of his friends hate him. And I told him I don't give a fuck about his relationships and that I was there for answers. It turns out my husband told the coroner's office that he was secretly helping Laura pay some of her debt because she was embarrassed and struggling to keep up with her lifestyle. I assume it didn't seem suspicious because her death was clearly an accident, and that's what they were investigating. In reality, he took out loans and store cards in her name and she somehow found out a few weeks before she died. Some guy he works with had apparently done it before and arranged it all, and if Laura hadn't found out, he claims they could have had it written off without her even knowing. When she did find out, the guy left him high and dry, and he had to pay it off. I'm inclined to believe that's the gist of what happened, but I am shocked my husband would do something this stupid. When she died so soon after, his brief and apparently genuine suspicion was that she had told me about it that day, and we argued and I killed her. He couldn't explain why I would kill someone because they were a victim of fraud, but according to him, he felt guilty in the immediate aftermath and his brain made it fit. I mostly believed this, but he tried launching into more weaponized therapy speak at that point, so I cut the topic off. A few months after his sister's death, Luke received a letter from a credit card company, not even the police, saying he was being investigated. Laura didn't have much, so her debts, which were less than £10,000 even with the fraud, were mostly written off. Something obviously flagged against my husband during that process. I don't know how or why. When the letters got more threatening, he believed the investigation would reopen the inquest and that he would be accused of fraud, perjury, and because of his previously unknown motive, possibly murder. He claims the only thing the company investigating him actually knows is that the fraud came from our address. So accusing me would make it impossible to prove because it would be a coin toss. His words as to which one of us took out the credit in Laura's name. That was worth our entire marriage to him and my reputation in the community we have been a part of for our entire lives. He says self-preservation kicked in and nothing else mattered when he thought about what could happen to him. When I asked him how his witness statement fits into his plan, because it proved he lied either way by acknowledging he knew about the debt and paying it, he froze for roughly a million years before saying he hadn't thought of that. Obviously, my response was to ask why. If he hadn't thought of it, he specifically said it was a lie he needed to cover earlier in the conversation. Suddenly, he's sobbing and his parents are rushing in to ask me to leave. I was in tears at this point, asking how the fuck he could do this to me over something so stupid and how much his parents knew about this as his mom was pushing me out of the house. All she said was that she couldn't have had this conversation with me. She was crying too, but wouldn't say another word. I am now 99% sure the fucker was trying to frame me. Not for her death, but for the fraud. He was going to claim that he was lying for me in the coroner's interview, right? If he wrapped it all up as quietly paying her off on my behalf than genuinely suspecting me for a murder, it would protect his reputation and point the finger at me. It just doesn't make sense any other way. Is my husband trying to frame me to weasel out of his actions? And how do I get to the bottom of this? I'm obviously open to theories because Reddit is the only reason I got this far in the first place. That being said, please don't come up with conspiracies about Laura's death in the comments. It's upsetting. She was wearing shitty old slippers and walking upstairs with a cup of tea, and she slipped and hit her head on a windowsill. This was never a murder mystery. It was someone's life, and she died just because. Maybe a butterfly flapped its wings somewhere. I don't know, but it's hard enough to accept without having guesses shouted at me on the internet whilst my marriage falls apart. And now let's get into some of the top comments. Someone says, I mean, framing you for fraud seems the most plausible from what you found, though it's an incredibly idiotic frame job that wouldn't work. So I have to say, he sounds incredibly dumb. As an explanation, it's probably the best you are going to get, though very unsatisfying. I am mystified by his parents' behavior and what he thought that Facebook post was going to accomplish. It's not like the investigators are going to go poll the town. He could have just written back to them that he knew nothing about these cards, and the only people at that address were you and him. There was no need in this weird plot to ruin your reputation publicly. But again, he sounds very dumb, so I guess that made sense to him. So, sorry this happened to you, but I suspect in several years' time, hopefully sooner, you will see being rid of him and his family was actually a blessing. I wish you your very best life going forward. And the OP responds saying, this is what I don't understand. He's behaved impulsively before, but never anything like this. I understand that he didn't take the fraud seriously until he was caught by Laura. And I can get that her death would have made him anxious about it, but I don't know what would possess him to think he could just pass it along. It's baffling. Someone else says, what's also strange is that it sounds like the fraud amount was low enough that, while yes, he'd get in trouble, it isn't like he's going to be ruined. Not that this is a good thing, but white-collar crime is not exactly strongly prosecuted in the UK. Plus, it sounds like a repayment settlement could have solved this. Unless he worked in finance or needs a security clearance, this wouldn't be something he couldn't recover from. Also, very odd is that you were his alibi for the accident. I realize that wasn't necessary, as this was an accident regardless of alibis, but still, it's very dumb if he was worried about this being known as a motive, that he would alienate his alibi. I keep coming back to the dumb part. Only explanation that makes sense, lol. And then the OP responds saying, this is exactly it. £3,000 would have been manageable. He could have set up a plan to repay it over a year, and he'd have needed to tighten up, but would have been fine. It was a private company, so getting their money back would obviously be more of a priority than seeking prosecution. This is also part of why a story doesn't make sense. It's such a small amount in the grand scheme of things to blow up your entire life. The only thing I can think of is pure desperation to protect his reputation, but even then, who goes that far? And then someone else says, is he someone that really prides himself on his reputation? Is his job in finances? And the OP responds saying, he's a mechanic, so he's got a bit of a masculine pride thing going on. He always wants to be seen as a good, quote, salt of the earth, do anything for anyone type of person. And whilst actually being a good person sometimes slips, usually in the way he talks to people after a drink, never ever to the point where I'd think he'd take loans out in people's names or try to ruin me like this. And then someone else says, I'm sure you've been asked this before, but is he on drugs? And then the OP responds saying, he's a casual drug user, but I've never seen signs of it getting unhealthy. He does booger sugar maybe 8 to 10 times per year, and I've never known him buy it when his money would have been better spent on something else. He's better at spending money than having it generally, but he's never ever shown signs of being greedy or deceitful. The only thing I can think of is that it would have been in the lead up to Christmas, but his gifts weren't particularly extravagant, so I don't think it was a desperate attempt at a magical Christmas. And that is the last update we have ever got from the OP, but just such a wild saga and so weird. I mean, why would the OP's husband ruin his life over a $3,000 debt? I mean, yes, that's not nothing, but at the same time, it's manageable, like they talked about. And so why would he blow up everything in his life, frame his wife for murder, do this and that and the other thing for a $3K debt? And it seems like we are missing something that the husband is possibly hiding, but I don't know. The OP has since deleted their account, so we are not getting any updates anytime soon, but super weird. And I'm interested to hear your guys' theories in the comments, but I'm kind of at a loss for words. This is just such a wild saga of posts, and I just don't know why the husband would do that, and I just feel so bad for the OP that their entire life got blown up over this super weird thing that went on. I mean, yeah, just such a wild saga of posts. And all right, guys, that wraps up some scary Reddit threads. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below and let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. And if so, please just leave all the feedback. Did you enjoy the threads I picked out? Did you enjoy my narration style? All that sort of stuff. And would you like to see longer videos than this, shorter videos than this, or the same length? I read every single comment, so please comment down below. And this is hands down the best community on YouTube. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. And thank you so much for watching. It means the world. And this was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.